We are looking at the summit eruption now ongoing at the summit of Mauna Loa. A fresh summit eruption happened around 11 p.m. this evening, a little after, I believe. And we're going to be joined right now by Two Pineapples. Lou from Two Pineapples is going to join us. We're going to talk about what we know about the eruption right now. Still very fresh, right? This eruption is happening at the summit of Mauna Loa, 13,000 feet inside the caldera, right? Right now, it hasn't shown any signs of going into the rift. Right now, we're just summit eruption, right? So we have Lou joining us. Philip is working on trying to parse the data and figure out exactly what's going on. So he'll be joining us in a little bit. Appreciate everybody that's joined us. Lou, everything looking good on the streaming
Yeah.
front? All right.
Aloha, everybody. Yeah, everything looks good on my end. I'm still kind of with you. We're kind of just going through everything, trying to pull up what we can right now, and still just focusing on those two images that we have of the thermal that you've got up on your screen right now, as well as the the MT cam,
Right.
the ML cam, right? Yeah, that's it. And putting some earthquake stuff together. I know Phil's on the backside, still trying to dial it in.
Right. So yeah, well, let's go through a little bit of what we know so far. So kind of let's start out in the beginning tonight. We've been tracking the activity at Mauna Loa for a while now, and the forecast was always that it would erupt at the summit first. That's the sequence that it does historically. In the past 34 eruptions on Mauna Loa, they start at the summit. So this one started at the summit as well, fully within expectations. But we had this earthquake sequence coming in tonight, and we can see some decent sized earthquakes in here. We had a 4.0, and this is the depth, right? This is the interesting thing. Let me pull this so you guys can actually see the depth. Look at the depth, -3 kilometers. So that -3, right? You're like, what does minus mean? Well, the minus just means it's above sea level, right? That's the threshold, or where the everything starts is sea level. So if it's minus, that means it's above ground. It's so what the summit's like 4 kilometers, or yeah, 4 kilometers up. So it's really shallow at that point, right? And we had all these earthquakes all around the summit, lots of threes, right? We didn't have any big earthquake so far. We looks like we do have a couple earthquakes happening coming down. What would this be? Wood Valley looks like area, some 2.5 and a 1.8. But yeah, really the earthquake action was at the summit. Focus on the summit, and it looks like on the south side of the caldera we have some earthquake activity more recently, right? This would be all considered summit, right? In the way the summit's defined, it's actually kind of broad. It's more broad than you might expect. It's not just the caldera is what's considered the summit. It's a broader area. So yeah, we have an ongoing eruption. Let's look at the sequence. This was the thermal cam just before the eruption happened. So we have it at 11:30 tonight, right? And then boom, 11:40, we're going, right? No doubt, summit eruption. And then we progress a little bit. You can see that lava fanning out. It's really flat up at the summit. Yeah, Lou?
That's a nice shot right there. I just saw that you pulled up. Hey, I want to jump in here on you. So everybody for the last several weeks, maybe month or so, has been talking. They've been waiting for a big earthquake, and it didn't really happen by a big earthquake to set it off, did it? You're just
No.
saying that point up, it was all smalls, right?
Right, and the big earthquake is, it lets you know something's coming. But as USGS put out a volcano watch probably a month ago at this point, and that volcano watch was saying yes, that those big earthquakes in the Helia area, on the south side of the caldera, a little bit downslope. Yeah, those do signify that an eruption is very likely type of thing. It's going into that sequence that we've seen historically. But that article was pointing out specifically that not all eruptions are predicated by that earthquake, that signature earthquake type, that big 6.0 type thing. It's not all of them are on that. Now the question is interesting. At the time, both us and USGS, that magnitude 5 earthquake down in Pahala that happened, You remember that thing? It was, it was connected to Mauna Loa, even though it was very close to those, Pahala earthquakes. Looking back, does that earthquake count? Right? At the
Mm.
time, we were like, nah, it doesn't really. I don't think that counts. Too small. But now it's like, well, maybe that did count. And it'll be interesting. This is this thing's all fresh right now, right? We're still only working with a couple images. USGS hasn't really put much out yet. Let's see if they got anything new. Oh, anything new from USGS? Hit refresh.
I got nothing. I'm refreshing constantly too.
Right? They did put out these. These was the same things we put out on Hawaii Tracker, just the thermal image. This is one of the after images. So the eruption happened between 11:30 and 11:40 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time tonight. And they posted the one at the midnight. Let's see, we got a new image here. This one is taken as of 5 minutes ago. The interesting thing to me is, this, when you read the history about, the summit eruptions on Mauna Loa and how vigorous they are, this doesn't look like those type of thing. Huge fountains. I mean, the problem is the scale. So let's look at, let me see if I can pull this up.
So that's in there that we're showing the thermal that you got up on there. That is huge. I mean, it when we hiked down into that caldera, it was a couple hours of hiking across that caldera.
Oh, it's a
That
long
point,
fissure, yeah.
it's huge. It's absolutely enormous. Yeah, that piece here you've got right there, that thermal shot showing a little bit of, yeah, that's just absolutely enormous. But it's so big up there, can't really grasp how, how big it is until you're standing up on top looking at it.
Oh, I screwed up the title. Sorry, everybody, for the titles. I screwed those up. But yeah, I think
It's only
Philip's taking care.
It's only 12:30 in the morning, Dane.
Right, we're just getting this line up. All right, so let's go through the sequences, what we saw on the camera. So one of the interesting things, this was the first real. I was talking with a friend. We were looking at the earthquake activity. We made a post on Hawaii Tracker, before the eruption took place, that was talking about the earthquakes that were happening at the summit, the shallow swarm, and that magnitude at the time it was a 4.2. And then this image appeared on the MT camera, or the ML cam, at the summit of Mauna Loa. And this is, it doesn't show anything here, but this is not what this camera does. I have at least 2 months of, every photo this camera's taken. It has no photos of it doing this yellow out at night, right?
Never seen that either.
That doesn't happen on this camera, but it wasn't enough, right? That's not enough to call an eruption, right? It wasn't until this image came across where it's like, all right, we have an eruption. There's no doubt about it. There's no question. But at that point in time, couldn't really tell. So this had to have happened, right? This can tell us, though. This is going to refine the time of this thing. This happened to happen at 11:30 to 11:31, right? Because we have this one at 11:30, right? And it's not erupting right there. And then by 11:31, we have this thing, right? So I think that's where it's going to be refined to, the timing of this eruption. We'll just call it 11:30 from now on. And then we progress through, and we can see that is, it's been called traditionally on Mauna Loa the curtain of fire, right? That wall, that fissure wall of fountains happening at the summit. And we progress through, and that's very recent, 1 a.m. Yep, definitely an eruption. So we have a change on the code, the alert level on Mauna Loa, reflected that the eruption is ongoing. Mauna Loa has been upgraded now by the USGS to red warning alert levels. So yeah, that's sorry, just making sure I got everything. Phone's like blowing up on me, trying to
I'll
figure
just
out if
click a
there's
button.
anything new coming out.
Everything's going crazy on my end. I can see there.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
I'm spotting up the house here.
let me pull up the chat real quick. Yeah, for right now, everything's confined to the caldera. Yep, there was a couple
So,
4.0 earthquakes right before.
so it's official. We went red, didn't we?
Yep, it's official. We're in the USGS has changed it to red.
Yeah.
They haven't posted from what I've seen yet, but it's
I
been
weren't
upgraded on the
straight
website.
red.
Yep. So, is there any update? Anything in the updates? Oh, it looks like we've
No.
got something. At approximately 11:30 HST this evening, November 27th, an eruption began in the Maunaloa, the summit caldera of Mauna Loa inside the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. At this time, lava flows are contained within the summit area and are not threatening downslope communities. Winds may carry volcanic gas, possibly fine ash, and Paley's hair downwind. Residents at risk from Mauna Loa lava flows should review preparedness and refer to Hawaii County Civil Defense uh, information for further guidance. Based on past events, the early stage of Maunaloa eruption can be very dramatic, and the location and the vents of lava can change rapidly. If the eruption remains in Makaveo, lava flows will most likely be confined within the caldera walls. However, if the eruption vents migrate outside the walls, lava flows may rapidly move downslope. HVO is in consultation with emergency management partners and will be monitoring the volcano closely to provide further updates on activity. As soon as possible, HVO will conduct aerial reconnaissance to better understand the eruption and assess hazards. So that one, yeah, that is the concern now, right? Is, as we said, the eruption starts at the summit. Half of the eruptions, they start and end at the summit, right? So,
And it's in the caldera,
right,
right?
yeah,
It's contained within that caldera, similar to Kilauea.
yeah, and half of them will start there and end there. That's just the historical record since like 1840-ish. So then, the other half, they can go into one of the two rift zones. That's the most likely thing, is one of the two rift zones. And those are about evenly weighted, roughly. And it likes to do the transition fairly rapidly. And we're talking within a few days, within a week max type thing. But it really likes to do it within those few days if it's going to move. And sometimes it moves fairly quickly, right? Within hours type of
Do you
thing.
want to take a question, Dane?
What do we got?
You got a question in the chat. Is it guaranteed the lava is from Meditation TV? Is it guaranteed the lava will flow and move in a direction towards the ocean or stay contained? Since we're talking about where it's actually erupting from, I thought that would be a good question.
Right. So the thing about Mauna Loa is the summit is, or the entire volcano is so big, right? I've used this analogy commonly. I'll use it again now. Mauna Loa you can think of as a roulette wheel. Black and red, nothing really happens. It's a neutral. But if it lands on that green, which there's only two on the wheel or one, it's in residential areas. It's really rare to be able to do that just because of the size of Mauna Loa. But there's exposed communities that if it were to go into, it would be bad. Now, right now, it's all at the summit. It's not going to really, I'm not concerned about it flowing out of the summit. And as they were saying here, uh, if it remains at the summit, most likely it's just going to stay within the summit. And even if it gets outside the summit, it's still a long way. And they traditionally don't really, make it that far if they're at the summit. Now, the transition into the rift zone, that's really where you'd be concerned right now, and that's what it's worth monitoring for. I'll pull back up the earthquakes. We're kind of looking here. Do got some earthquakes, but these are still within what we consider the summit region. But yeah, we got what are we showing here? Let me bring it over so people can see. So most recent earthquakes about 1235 had this little one, but we had a couple 2.7s all at the summit, caldera, a little bit on the south side here. These are these 2.9s. It looks like there's a bunch of 2.9s with the 3.3
Small.
here.
I mean, we didn't feel anything at the house here that low. And I don't know about Phil. He's a little closer than we are. I don't know if he felt anything. Those are so small we wouldn't even feel those. It kind of blows the theory on what a lot of people would throw out, waiting for the big one or two, similar to in the past. We've seen those 6.5s or 6.7s, and then all of a sudden, the next 24 hours, we see activity. Kind of blows that theory right out of the water now, doesn't it?
Not. I mean, it's just Maunaloa has a bunch of different pitches that it throws, right? So just because we
Yeah.
got the straightforward fastball doesn't mean it's got doesn't have a changeup or a slider in the repertoire hidden behind the back waiting for the sign type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
hmm You got another question here. It says, how's this affect Kilauea? And Ann says, does this affect Kilauea flow? Is it connected?
Well, let's. I mean, okay. So we've seen how there is a connection between Maunaloa and Kilauea that has been demonstrated in the research that we were. If anybody would like to go over that research, I don't have it prepared right now, but we went through it in our last live stream, and that was basically breaking it down, showing that really the relationship is that Mauna Loa likes to bully Kilauea, right? So when Mauna Loa does things with its summit reservoir, that influences Kilauea much more dramatically than something at Kilauea with the reservoir would influence Mauna Loa. So I just break it down to say it bullies Kilauea. Now, right now with the eruption at Kilauea, when I checked it, it looked very similar.
Mhm. I don't see any changes on my end.
Right.
We still have a. Yeah.
I don't even know if that's actually going to work. Right. So let me just type in Kilauea. Just bring up what the webcams at Kilauea real quick.
Mhm.
And Kilauea looks very similar to how it looked, 24 hours ago. That Summit Lava Lake is still going. But one of the questions we do get commonly asked is, have Kilauea and Mauna Loa ever erupted at the same time? Well, here you go. 2022 is the last time they erupted at the same time.
So no other official date that both of them have been going.
Oh, no.
This is
The
it.
last time Mauna Loa erupted, Kilauea was erupting 84. It's not that uncommon, really. There's old paintings. I can't remember the painter. Philip would know right off the bat, but I can't remember his name right now. It's 1 a.m. almost. Anyways, he had a painting taken he did from Volcano House at Kilauea Summit. It shows Kilauea erupting, and you can see Mauna Loa on the northeast rift zone erupting as well. So let's go back to Mauna Loa and pull up the latest photo if we got a new one up here. This one's taken 8 minutes ago. How's that? Is that progressing? Is that the question? Let me line up a few photos. Let me close that one. We don't need that one. We got this one. Is there any more MTs? This one. And then I'll grab a few more, the more recent photos from it. I'll bring those up as well. Sorry, we're making up this production as we go, everybody.
I'm just over here clicking through everything too. If I spot something new, I'll let you know. But we're just kind of trying to just waiting for everything to update. I will take Frank's advice. I'll take a look up I don't see a glow at this point. There's my on the ground look. Nope, still nothing. From my end, we're only sitting at 900 feet, about I don't know, 20 minutes from Kilauea. Maybe Phil can look out his window and if there's a glow or anything up there. I don't know because it's so deep in that caldera. It's down on the floor of that caldera. I don't even know if we'd even catch a glow.
Let me also pull up a photo of the caldera when it's daytime so we can see approximately where this thing is erupting at. Let's do that right now since that's something we can do on the fly. Not a whole lot we can do right now, but yeah, that'll work. All right, everybody, hold on for a moment. Let's go there. One more. Okay. So this was taken 8 a.m. yesterday. Don't know why, but that's where I pulled it up. And we can see, okay, let's get a bearing roughly. All right, let's see. This would be better by the thermals.
I think this is close.
Oh.
I'm gonna take a look here.
So there we can kind of see roughly. So it's, if you can see the cursor there, I think it'd be starting right about there. Anyways, let's move that out of the way for now, and let's look at the latest. Let's look at the sequence so far. So we have the beginning of the eruption on the thermal camera. Oh man.
Dan, I just sent you a picture of a shot of the caldera with Anna in the foreground, kind of give everybody a perspective of just the vastness of that caldera. It's absolutely stunning. When we walked up to it, I was really shocked. I mean, I've like everybody else, I've seen dozens and dozens of pictures, but until you're standing up on that ledge, getting ready to hike down and across it, because you have to, when you come up from the Mauna Loa, from the Red Hill cabin, and come across, and to get to the summit cabin, you have to drop into the caldera and hike across it. You don't really understand how big it is till you're standing right next to it and start preparing to walk through. It's absolutely enormous. And I think from that picture, it looks like that cam's got to be maybe to the left. You might have a better idea. I did not see that camera up there. That was one camera we did not see. Couldn't have been far from us, but at that point of the hike, we were 5 days in. Didn't really see a lot.
All right, let's see. Oh yeah. What's the angle on this one? You're at the north side looking south?
We're looking southwest. You can see there's the trailhead sign right there in the bottom corner.
Mm-mm.
Looking in.
Interesting. Yeah, not sure. It's so hard to orientate at night even.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, that. Very interesting right now. Let's see if I can get that whole. Trying to get the whole sequence in order right now. Sorry. Yeah. Not a whole lot of footage to look at right now. Let's check earthquakes again. See, so this
No
would be
footage,
the.
no access.
So you can see here the southwest rift zone with all these, eruptions coming off of it, right? All these black spots or the previous eruptions. We can see right now there's no earthquake activity that's occurring, in the rift, going down the rift. There's really nothing. It does right now. This earthquake is outside the caldera, but we would still consider this summit region.
We
Really.
do have a viewer, Anita, says there's a good glow on the west side right now.
Mm. Yeah, I would imagine there'd be places you'd be able to see something. So that somebody was at the Volcano golf course
Mm-hmm.
um, at High Street. I believe that's the Volcano golf course. 30 minutes ago and no glow. The whole sky is lit up that way. Now the whole sky is lit up that way. So they can see glow. I'm sure there's some spots you can see glow, but again, Mauna Loa is so big, right? That it's not
That's
like
huge.
Kilauea where you can just drive up to the summit and take a photo of it. I mean, it's so remote and it's so late at night that really all we got right now is those two webcam that are provided by USGS. So we thank them for that. Hopefully they got, I'm sure they got a bunch of guys working on it right now. A bunch of people
Kilauea.
got wake up calls tonight, a little bit
Looks
early.
like Cook. You can see the glow from Captain Cook right now. We
Yeah.
got another. I just got a private message. This is one from Lance saying Captain Cook split up. I got another one from Kona saying they're catching glow now. So it looks like we're on the road.
Right. Yeah, that Captain Cook is definitely a spot you'd be able to see from. Um, yeah, the whole sky's lit up. I'm out in Leilani Estates in Puna, so there's no chance I'd be able to see it. But it's like as I was saying before, it's when you talk about Mauna Loa, you expect it at the summit, right? And it gives you this warning. It's like the beacon of Gondor that hey, it's time to get ready. It's time to watch to see if it's going to move into the rift zone. And if it does, it's time to take that early measures, right, to make yourself out of harm's way and as much prepared. So right now, it's all about that southwest rift zone to watch, just because the time on it is vastly different for the people that live on the slopes than the north, right? The north can get to Hilo. Mauna Loa can reach Hilo, right, which would be very bad, but it would take significantly amount of time. The last time it seriously got into that area, it was 1880, 1881, and that thing took like 250 days, right, from the eruption to get down there. So it takes a long time, right? There's some flat pans in there that really slow it down. There are none of those features that would slow down a flow on the Southwest Rift. And some areas, it's the slope is dramatic, so the lava would move very rapidly if it were to come out of the certain spots basically. And that's if it does go in the rift, those spots are abundant. And it's just what does it do from here? So that's kind of what we're doing now is watching to see how rapid it's gonna make, if it is gonna make a transition. Again, half of the eruptions on Mauna Loa in the past 180 years, half of those are going to start at the summit and end at the summit, right? So we're not going to be doing any rift zone activity most of the time. And then the rest of it's split between the northeast rift zone, the southwest rift, and these little radial eruptions. Like you can see this one here kind of pops out the side where the rift isn't. Let me see if I can pull something up. Let's bring up some of my maps and see. Hopefully, it doesn't crash everything. Because it's got to load a bunch of stuff that it's kind of ridiculous.
Well, it is 12:58 a.m. Hang in there.
Yeah, we're just pulling up into Google Earth Pro. And let's pull up some layers to show what we're talking about here. right, so here we got Mauna Loa. Let me get rid of that flow. That is not an accurate lava layer. Do not pay any attention to that. Uh, Sorry, I'm just trying to get this set up right now. Where is that thing coming from? There it is. All right.
Looks like Love the Universe put up their boyfriend sent a picture from Kona Safeway about 30 minutes ago. Got a glow from Kona Safeway.
So see it from Kona. Yep.
Yeah.
Giant beacon that it's time to pay attention type of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it has happened.
Yep.
We have an eruption at the summit of Mauna Loa. We are here with Lou from Two Pineapples. Thank you for joining us, Lou. Again, Philip is working on trying to process the data right now and figure out a little bit more what's going on. So we are taking over right now. And we are looking right at the map of the rift zones of Mauna Loa. And right in the center here is the summit, right? And let's see if we can pull up earthquakes. We'll pull those up. Oops. So we can see these are all the different slopes coming off of the volcano, right? And it's just a long way down. And it's really flat up here at where it's erupting right now inside the caldera itself. So it has to really find a way out of there before it really gets going type of thing.
I don't even know where there would be an exit point from that area where I'm looking, because when we hiked all through there, I mean, unless there's a tube or there's no dip anywhere for it to flow over. The wall is hundreds of feet high. I don't know. That'd be an interesting question to ask, of where could it actually come out of there, because I don't know. We walked that whole wall. We were there for a couple days, and I don't see an exit point anywhere.
It does. I mean, it can go out the south or the north, basically, but it's like going to be a fissure that extends from the caldera down. Usually, it just doesn't really get out of the caldera. Really, the caldera is safe, for all intents and purposes. You know, there's gas and stuff like ash, but really, like with Mauna Loa erupting, this is the first time since 1984 that it's erupted. We'd like to see it, start and end at the summit, right? And we not go into those transitions into the rift zone, which is now the concern. That transition can be somewhat rapid, right? But it can take, it can happen over the course of several days too. Will it create an entry point? As of right now, it needs to basically get out of the caldera. If it does not get out of the caldera, I would bet a lot of money against it finding its way to the ocean. That's egregious odds.
And just to be clear, you brought up that it is erupting, but it is in the caldera. Nobody needs to panic at this point. It's all in there.
Right.
Lay low till everybody gets some more information. Everything's okay right now. I'm getting a lot of messages on my end. Everybody we're good. It's in the caldera.
Right. All right, let's see about pulling up any more cams. Let's see what the latest looks like. Has anything come out from USGS yet? Or I know they put out the photos. They put out a statement. Oh, here we got something new. Goes west. Shows the development of Mauna Loa eruption and associated plume. Is there a way to blow that up? Oh, yep, you can see it right there.
Yep.
Just pop up.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see in the morning what the overflights show, right? We expect those to happen at dawn. As of right now, we are still just working with the webcams. So let's see the latest. This one was taking 4 minutes ago. And you can see that. How's that? It's basically similar. So we can see that about over the last hour that Fisher has extended. It's grown. I hesitate to say what direction this is, what the orientation is. I'd say that's to the south. But yeah, that Fisher has been growing over time. But it's still, we're talking about an area that's gigantic. The caldera itself, and then the slopes of Mauna Loa. All right, I'm going to look for some questions, see if there's anything going. Again,
I'm looking to see if anything pops up for you. I don't see anything new.
the nice thing is that with Mauna Loa, it does do the summit eruption first to let you know that, hey, it's time to pay attention, right? It doesn't just pop out of the rift zone all of a sudden, right? It has this sequence that it goes into. Yeah, we didn't get the earthquake, but that doesn't always, the signature earthquake. But maybe that 5.0 you would consider the signature earthquake in retrospect, right? Maybe not, but it's debatable at this point. But still, right? We went fairly quickly into the eruption sequence. I didn't see anybody get anything out before the eruption. I posted about the earthquake swarm on Hawaii Tracker just before the eruption happened, type of thing. It was just a little while before, just saying, hey, look at these shallow earthquakes. They're getting shallower. They were all above sea level, 1 to 2 kilometers up. So the top of the, working its way up to the surface. And then after the eruption, we saw USGS put Mauna Loa into a red, alert level warning and color code red. We have a summit eruption, right? And the early photos out of that just, show this curtain of fire, as it's called, this wall of lava coming out of the caldera. And that thing's probably pretty tall. It's just so hard to get a sense of scale right now with this thing.
Yeah, so on the size, it's what, 3 miles by 1.5 miles wide is the caldera there? If I'm remembering right, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
It's pretty big, which Kilauea in itself is 3 miles by 2 miles wide and long. I mean, 3 miles is that's a long ways to cover with lava. And looking at the there you go, that shot there looking down. There's a long caldera.
Right.
That was a heck of a walk.
Yeah, he's done the hike up there to the summit. I have not, especially from the south side, the long route. Now, let's see if there's anything from Civil Defense out. I doubt it, but let's go ahead and check. You never know. Hey, they do got something. Bam. So did they link? Yep, and they linked to the active alerts at... Very good. Very good. At least they are up at this hour. So yeah, now we're just kind of all observing. That's really the posture that we're in right now. Is it's a watch and wait, right? Half the eruptions will start and end at the summit. The other half will transition into the rifts, and that's where the real question is right now: is are we going rifts or are we staying summit, right? And that's what I guarantee USGS is looking for right now with their seismologists, right? With the ground deformation. It was interesting. Let me see if I can pull this up. The tilt really didn't show much. Like this is updating, right? Yeah, this is should be updated, and you really just can't see anything on the tilt to say like, hey, there was an eruption that was coming.
Nothing really gave us any indication other than all these small quakes. I mean, there was 14 minutes ago was the last one. It was just a 2.6. Don't mind my dog. Somebody in the house is still sleeping.
All right. Sorry, everybody in chat. Let's see if we got anything more coming. Big earthquake can still happen, possible. Any precautions to take? It depends where you're really located right now. If you're on the Southwest Rift, located, let's see here. We're going to pull this up. Right, we're going to pull up what's called the Truesdale inundation zones. And what these are, you know, really for the next step. Right now we're at the summit eruption only, right? And if it stays summit eruption, then this map, you're not going to need it. But say it transitions into the rift zone, and let's say we're more concerned about the southwest rift zone always than compared to the north, just because we have so much less time on the south to get, you know, residents out of the flow path if it were to take that direction. So these are called the Truesdale inundation zones, and this was produced by Frank Truesdale and Mike Zauler. These guys really know what they're talking about when it comes to Mauna Loa. And one of the things that they were able to do is basically compartmentalize Mauna Loa into these different areas, right? So we have this Wood Valley area, right? Keohi area. So all these different areas, Nili'i, they are what also civil defense is going to use in order to make determinations on evacuations. So say you had a lava flow that was to come down. Let's see if I can just pull up an old eruption. Bam. Like, this is not what's happening. This is not what's happening, what I'm showing here. I'm just illustrating the Truesdale inundation zones with a hypothetical. This is what I'm showing here is the 1926 eruption on Mauna Loa. So just under 100 years ago, that's what we're looking at here. And we can see that two Truesdale inundation zones would have been activated at this point in that eruption, which did transition, started at the summit. This one transitioned into the rift zone. And we would see that this Mili'i inundation zone would be the one that would be impacted, but it wouldn't, you know, directly impacted. We'll say everybody kind of gets impacted in one way or another, but the lava flow is cutting through you, right? That's that one area that gets contained, and that does not mean, as you can see here, right, just because this is the inundation zone that is active, it does not mean that this entire area will be covered. Right, it just means that this is the walls that it has to, you know, it'll be contained within, so it can go wherever within these things, and that would be expected. It's not.
So Dane, jump in here real quick with you.
Yeah.
So the map that you're showing right there, and that's a question that I'm getting on the side, and I see in the chat room. What's the time again? Several hours.
This
if
one
there was accident.
So it can get weird, right? The worst case scenario, the absolute worst case scenario, was 1950. Mili'i lava flow lobe was able to go from the rift zone to the sea in 3 hours, right? However, there was other flows in that eruption, and 1950 was one of the worst case eruptions. It's the worst case in modern history for Mauna Loa, and it's still, you know, it's a good. If you're looking for the worst case, 1950 has a whole bunch of, you know, things to point to. Other flows that came down took 8 hours, took a day, took a couple days. This flow that we're looking at again is 1926 right here. This flow, it took 4 or 5 days to really transition into the rift zone from the summit. And then when it did, it took, you know, several hours to a day to get down, type of thing. But it was still a bunch of time in between the eruption, and there was a bunch of earthquakes that signified that it was going into the rift zone. Even in 1926, the volcanologists could tell that, hey, this thing's still moving into the rift zone, even though that eruption, it started at the summit, and within about 12 hours, we'll say, that eruption had ended at the summit, right? And then a few days later, it transitioned into the rift. So there's a whole bunch of different scenarios. This is, you know, just one hypothetical scenario, which was 1926. But yeah, so wherever the lava crosses out of this pink rift zone right here, When it crosses out of that and it gets into one of these side areas, these inundation zones, which are lava sheds, which work similarly to watersheds. Once it gets in one of those, then I can tell you basically what areas are going to be impacted by the flow. But even then, it's not guaranteed that it can impact. Most of the flows from Mauna Loa will come down the rift and not make it to the ocean. Right? They will pull that up real quick. All right, this is the lava flows on Mauna Loa in the last 750 years. I know. Let me turn off the inundation zones because there's a lot going on right here.
So that's 750 years right there.
750 years, the last 750. You can see the rift zone holds pretty well, right? They're all within this rift zone, but that's not surprising. But you can see all these different lobes, right, that come down off of the rift zone and don't make it to the ocean. There's a good amount that do, but there's a good amount that don't. So you just because it's coming down doesn't mean it's going to make it all the way. It can reset and transition before it gets that far, even if it did have the volume type of thing. So if earthquakes start moving south, that will be a problem, right? Generally, that would not be good.
A question in chat, and I've seen this a couple times already. How is Fissure 8 affected all anything Leilani?
No.
Anywhere else to be concerned with right now?
Nope, we pulled up Kilauea, and it looks very similar to how it looked prior to the eruption.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have closed it.
The latest picture update from Mauna Loa shows she is spreading. Took another big jump all the way to the edge. This is definitely all moving up there.
But yeah,
update that.
Still very big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can see that stretched across the caldera there. Looks like it's entirely confined within the caldera to me.
Yeah. And then you gotta. Patricia's asking. She's trying to figure out where on that map you just had up, where HPP is located.
HPP.
Do you mind putting that picture? Yeah, mind putting that photo back up there and kind of give an idea of.
This is HPP here.
Is.
And this is a good illustration because look, I'm showing the lava flows from the last 750 years, right? It's a decent sample size. Nothing is getting close to beaches or HPP in that time.
No.
Yeah, really, this area has been largely spared from Mauna Loa, even though it is considered so close to the rift zone.
Yeah. We're looking more towards the west side of the island. How long is the fissure? Anyone know? How long?
Sorry.
Are we even saying we have a fissure up there?
Yeah, that's fissure.
Yeah. That looks like it for... So, east side, our side here, Puna District, HPP. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Sorry. Let's get back to
all good. You're good. I'm doing the same as you. If we're pausing, Dan and I are both kind of doing the same thing, just clicking on pages and refreshing constantly. So if earthquake stuff, CJ Jarisa 993 asked, if earthquakes start moving south, will that be a problem? If earthquakes start moving south.
Yeah, that was I was answering that one kind of. But yeah, it would not be considered good if we start to see that activity. I'd like to see more on the monitoring side of things, but let's see, where is that tab? Too many tabs.
Yeah. Deal on that one right now.
Just looking to see if we can see anything here. We just got a bunch of data streams up. The GPS isn't going to be updating enough or frequently enough to be used, but really the tilt just doesn't show anything. It's interesting. Like this was kind of missed, it looks like, to my eye. But it's so big, Maunaloa Summit, too. That's the thing to remember. It's so big that you can get things that happen locally.
So the M2 cam, that
Yeah.
isn't the moon. I don't think that's the moon. I think it's picking up the glow. Yeah, it is.
I don't have that one recording.
That one just lit up for me. Pause my screens here. Yeah, that's got to be it.
Maunaloa, all right.
M2.
Nope. That one's frozen. That one's frozen. That one doesn't have anything. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's an interesting one. I'm surprised I'm not recording that cam. Interesting, yeah. I mean, that does look like glow to me.
I would think so. I don't see a moon on. I just looked out the window again.
No,
And I don't see anything.
The moon was pretty crescent.
Mhm.
Last I saw it, and that was maybe last night. So yeah, we are just in a wait mode to see if we are going to get those earthquakes that are indicating that it's migrating, or if we are just going to watch a summit eruption. Those summit eruptions tend to be rather short-lived. Not all of them. I mean, the thing about it is, in the historical record, even though it's not that, doesn't go back that far, like 180 years, there's 33, 34 eruptions that occur in that time period. So there's a decent amount of variance that you can see, even with that smaller sample size, right? And the thing is always hard with, the volcanoes is you're dealing with this tiny little sample size in terms of historical record. And these things, are million years old type of thing, hundreds of thousands of years old. So it's really hard to really get a sense of all the possibilities by just that. But yeah, we do see that, it is abiding by expectations. We have a summit eruption confined to the caldera. See if there's anything. I mean, there's just really, it's so late. There's really nothing new coming out right now. And I don't believe anybody's going to be taking a helicopter up tonight. It's not pressing up there, right? It would be nice to have footage, yes. It'd be really cool, to be looking at some helicopter footage right now of this eruption, but it's not like, in 2018 where that was important information, that overflight footage, just to, the proximity, where's the flow going, because you're so close to everything that's valuable, right? You're so close to residential neighborhoods. Up at the summit, it'd be nice, but it'd be nice. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Phil.
Hey, Phil. There you are.
Believe you are muted still.
How's it going, guys? Can you see me?
Yeah.
Hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, how's it going, everybody?
Good.
Just catching up here.
So what do you got for us, Phil?
Well, I think there's a you guys have covered a lot of the groundwork there, right? The eruption started at the summit, and it's a wait and see as far as what it's going to do from there. There's kind of two tacks to this, right? There's all as usual. There's a science tack of what's actually going to happen with the data and all that, and the other tack, of course, is a preparedness tack, right? So obviously, we can talk about all the science and all that, but I imagine that what's happening with USGS and Civil Defense is they're starting to put into action some of those plans for that Southwest Rift communities, right? Because there's really limited time, and as we discussed in the past, one of those countdown timers starts when a summit erupts. So we have that, and so I imagine that people who are, let's say, down in Ocean View, you hope that nothing, that the worst case doesn't still come to pass, but if it were to pass, then this is one of those warning signs that you'd kick yourself if you didn't use this as a chance to take some action to whether it be pack stuff up or get things ready, get things organized, in case you do have a call to evacuate within the next few days or something like that, right? We're not saying for sure like it would come down in a few hours, but like it could be a day's timeline from now if it was the worst case. So I'm sure that's probably what Civil Defense is looking at first and foremost. So that's kind of the preparedness side of things. As for the science side of things, there actually are, I guess, a series of images now released. Let me see if I can pass you this link, Dane.
Yeah, if you got any links, if anybody has any good
Yeah.
links, let us know.
Here, well, you're gonna have to navigate this on screen probably, but that's gonna be all right. But open that link up, and this is a member of the Two Pineapples crew, Andre, right, who's logging all these cameras, and if you can get that up there.
Yeah. Which one are we after?
Well, you've already noted which ones, either the MT or the ML.
It looks like I wanted to see M2 because we'd seen those.
Well, you haven't seen every single frame, have you?
Oh.
Not that I've seen on the screen. So click on those, and let's look at the more interesting stuff first. And it takes a little while to load, but eventually you can kind of get you can scroll through with your mouse probably the images that come up most recently. So it's automatically going in the last 24 hours. It's going to load a bunch of images here, so it's going to take a little while. You can speed it up by going all the way over, but the bottom line, after having looked at those images, what I can tell you is that there is began with a fissure right at the center of the caldera, right there. It looked like it was a higher fountain. It's hard to tell exactly from there, but it was a decently moderate fountain there, and then it's kind of spread out. And as that rift zone, as the that fissure at the summit unzips, right? So it's been unzipping there and putting out a typical amount of Maunaloa lava at the summit, which is a lot, and that lava is filling the caldera floor. It's hard to tell from the images now, but it's on pace to probably within a few hours here cover the entire caldera floor of Mokoa Ve'oveo at Maunaloa Summit. It's hard to estimate exactly from the cameras, but yeah, I might give it about a mile long for that fissure that's visible on the summit right now. And of course, this is just the opening phases, and what happens in Mauna Loa and most eruptions, as we saw, even 2018, is the fissures will open up in sequence. And so this is the first set of them. And the question is, will there be more that open up? And how far do they propagate towards the rift, as you guys have mentioned, right? So it's worth mentioning once again that the summit area is considered to go down and include the upper rift zones, upper southwest rift, upper southeast rift, so that if earthquakes or even fissures go into that upper southwest rift or upper northeast rift area, that doesn't guarantee that it's moving into the rift yet. It has to go below that about 11,000 foot threshold, or is it what, 12,000?
Right.
Or so foot. We'll have to look up the exact number again, but that threshold there.
Between 11 and 12 in there.
So yeah, have you had any luck with pulling up any of those images there on the right hand? It's always tricky when you're streaming.
Yeah, it's loading up. It's just getting it to the actual right point. We're about to go into the sequence, so it's right now at 9:40. The eruption's at 11:30. So it should be coming up here
So you're in an MT camera. Let me get mine on my screen here, just so I can kind of follow along with you and kind of point out what you might be seeing there. So it looks from that camera that the temperature gauge is still low at 11:30 p.m. and the image at 11:31 p.m. from the visible camera is showing an eruption. So I think we probably can nail down that eruption time to pretty much between 11:30 11:31, right in there, assuming the clocks are all synchronized and all that. But
That's what I was seeing
that's
as
about
well.
it's about the ballpark. There's an image from 11:40 that's showing where that fissure begins, right in the middle, center of the image there, and you can't tell any scale from this yet, but you can tell that the fissure gets lower after that initial burst.
Yeah, there it is. We're looking at it, 1140.
Got that 1140. Yeah, so yeah, I guess that's pretty. So you can actually then, with your mouse print, scroll through, and you probably have like a 4-frame little or 5 frames, six frames now of that fissure unzipping and that flow extending, right? And looking at that most recent, if you keep advancing it, notice how it's
I gotta load up a few more. Sorry, it's been a little.
Notice how it's so much hotter there at the edge, right? It's a brighter color. You can see that fissure line is a little bit brighter in the distance in the middle of that pinkish color, but really it's that flow is cooling and crusting over up in that cold evening air up there. So that'll be curious to see if we can gauge from the amount of open lava how active that how much lava is actually putting out and how long it might actually last. As you said, many eruptions at the summit will start and end within a few hours. And if they do move into the rift, that question probably is coming up if it hasn't yet. It typically does that within a few days, about a week maybe. It would be the outside mark of it. I think there's one instance in the document that calls it 6 months or so. But I think for our purposes, really, like we're looking for something to happen most likely within the next couple of days if it is going to move. And so it's kind of a process of watching and waiting and seeing there, right? If that rift zone, if that fissure unzips into the rift zone or into the upper rift zones, or it's likely that it goes across the summit a little bit more than it has that we can see in that camera there. I mean, it looks like the latest image there on the camera. Maybe that left edge of the camera is the fissure is migrating across there. It's hard to tell there at the very end.
So I got lined up like all the photos. There's a lot of duplicates. I think these are all the photos of it that are good from the thermal camera so far. Right, so 1140, and then we jump to midnight, and then 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later. That's it. That's the latest, I believe. Is there another? Oh, there's one more. Let's get that up.
And you can go through and do a similar thing for the ML cam. Yeah, and there is glow. I have noted some messages. Yeah, there is glow on the the M3 and the M2 cameras too that I've noticed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those.
So yeah, that's it so far. See what we can see about it. You can see it's still expanding that fissure line a little bit.
Yeah, so you can see the left edge of it unzipping to the left there, which is to the east.
Oh, it's to the east.
And kind of goes all the way to the edge of the camera. Yeah, the camera is looking from the north towards the south.
Okay, I was trying to get orientation and it was really difficult. All right, there's a question for you. The study claiming that there was a magnitude 6 earthquake would cause brittle deformation to bring magma to the summit. Do you think the recent 5.0 quake contributed that, as described in the study? Basically, does that 5.0 that happened over, 2 months ago now, does that count as that forewarning earthquake?
Well, I think we're maybe getting stuck in a pattern a little bit too much about what those earthquakes are actually accomplishing and how the mountain's actually moving, right? So we knew that magma was coming into that shallow area underneath the summit, and we haven't seen like a a bigger flank movement, like like you guys are talking about a magnitude 6 or 7 large flank movement would be one that would be more concerning, because that would mean you have a bigger chance to open a rift zones for magma to go into that either southwest or northeast rift zone. So yeah, those earthquakes that happened a little more than 2 months ago now were moving the flank. They weren't moving it as much as we would expect to guarantee a forthcoming eruption, but they obviously were enough to open at least that summit area to more injection, which is what we've been seeing. And it's it's hard to really say there. It's a kind of a part way, right? So you could say that it counts, but it counts like a part way.
Right. It's interesting looking back at.
But it might potentially portend the fact that if the rift zones haven't opened as much with a bigger earthquake, that maybe that makes it prefer to stay at the summit. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if that's actually the case or not.
Right. I'm just trying to get a lineup from the other camera of all the footage that we got of it so far. Hopefully all these photos aren't duplicates. Can't really tell.
Guys, we're still here, but we are packing up. We're going to drive up and see if we can get any outside ground views from Phil. Will probably pass in your house in about 45 minutes. I don't know if you can see anything from your spot, but we're going to cruise up over the top and see if we can give any type of info, any shots from where we can see.
All right, so I have it lined up here from the ML cam. We'll step through that. So this was the first frame. Everything was dark before this. So eruption happened between 11:30, 11:31. And then we have in the next frame, 15 minutes later, we got that fountain, and we can see it start to progress. Whoops. Oh man, I didn't bring these over. Let's do that again. All right, so eruption, we're progressing. And that's where we are now. Yeah, so Maunaloa Eruption, we are joined now with Philip Ong, and we also have Lou from Two Pineapples. They are going to be going out and trying to get some views from the ground. It's really hard to be able to do that. It's going to be very far away. Hopefully got some good lenses there, Lou. Because, yeah, you're not going to get a close-up on this one. But, yeah, it's Summit Eruption confirmed. Go ahead, Lou.
There'll be no close-up. There'll be no close-up on this one at all. But we'll pull into Kilauea and take a look. I got two different. I just put out some messages to see if anybody had any updates on the Maunaloa Road on this side to see if that's closed. It's pointless for us to drive up that to the 6,000 foot mark because it puts us below the caldera anyway. So I don't think so. We're gonna dip out somewhere. We're gonna just drive from here to Nalehu and see if we pick up something along the way. We might not be able to kick live, but maybe we can get some shots and we'll send them back to you as we get them.
It'd almost be the view from Waldron's Ledge on Mauna Loa isn't the worst, and then you might be able to do two volcanoes at once erupting if you go back Waldron's. So it might be worth checking out.
That's kind of our thoughts. That's our thoughts too, is to head in there. My only issue is in about 40 hours I'm having knee surgery, so the hiking is going to be a little bit limited for me. And it might be pulling me in the buggy out to Waldron's Ledge.
Oh man. Yeah,
but we'll get what we can get.
It's funny that you were saying like, oh, I'm gonna get knee surgery and then Mauna Loa is gonna erupt. Then your knee surgery gets postponed and then Mauna Loa erupts.
Right? Here we are.
Here we are.
I've been saying this for weeks. I've been saying this. Oh my goodness, it's so funny. All right, so guys, thank you very much. I'm gonna shut off because I'm gonna pack my bags. We gotta fire up the truck, and if you guys are still on, I'll send you what we have. If not, you'll have it for everybody else as soon as we get it.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Lou. That was 2
You're welcome.
pineapples. Appreciate them.
Yep. Catch you later, guys.
All right, later.
Hello, everybody.
All right. Let's see what we got.
So we got some pictures coming in from Ikaika here.
Oh, yeah?
And it looks like pictures taken from the Kona side, and they're seeing some flow outside the caldera area that seems to be on the upper slopes of the mountain up there.
Do you have a link for that?
I can't easily, if you just, yeah, I'm not really set up to give that to you here. Hold on. You might check on Trekker. I'm not sure. Let's see here.
I'll try and just pull up Kaika's page.
Yeah, if you look in your Telegram now.
Oh, wow. Let me pull that up for everybody. Oh, do I need to save it? Sorry, everybody. I'm trying to pull this up. Let's see if we can get this up. There we go. We can see that summit eruption coming down the slope. It looks like a decent amount. It's hard to tell again. The photo is so hard at night to get orientation and everything. But definitely, can see that lava sending down the slope a little bit. The whole sky is red, it looks like, over Kona side. Let me see if I can pull up. I'll just check some other webcams, see if there's anything.
Well, so maybe I can just summarize and review here again.
Yeah,
Once again,
ahead.
yes, the eruption began at the summit, and began as a fissure right at the center of the caldera, and it's been unzipping through the caldera, and it's now kind of off the edge of the screen of the summit webcam. As we've seen in the past Maunaloa eruptions, the summit phase of an eruption can have fissures both inside the caldera and outside the caldera. The ones outside the caldera on the upper slopes are the ones that would put flows down the upper slopes, like we're seeing indications of here. So just that on its own is not. Yes, what's the right term here, right? I'm sure everyone is alarmed. The lava is visible out there, right? But it's a matter of how far down the slope is actually coming. That's something we can't really gauge from this picture right here. So lava on the upper slopes would not be unusual. It would almost be expected. In fact, it's fairly typical with most Maunaloa eruptions. The question is really what happens in the next day or two, whether the fissures progress further down the slopes outside the summit region and put down flows down, as you see from the picture, but from the lower flanks. That's when it would be trouble.
Right. And as USGS has said, that the eruption currently is confined to the caldera, and if it stays within the caldera, that's there's little concern about the lava flows impacting the communities. But they also said here in a tweet just recently, the eruption is currently confined to the summit. There is no indication that magma is moving into either rift zones at this time. Now that can change, but at this time, right, we don't see that. I'll just pull up the earthquakes again so we can take a look at that. We're just checking in. We see most of these earthquakes, and the ones in the past hour have been more on the north side of the caldera, but we had some on the south as well. But really, we'd be looking for more signature if it was moving into the rift right now. So sorry, go ahead, Phil, with the...
I don't have my train of thought anymore.
Oh, okay,
I'm
sorry. But yeah, that's the real concern right now, is that we're watching to see if it transitions into the rift zone. And we can see from this map all these past eruptions from Mauna Loa come down off of the rift zone, ridge that runs around here. And it's concerning on that south side, that southwest rift zone, because there's so much less time than on that northeast rift zone for it to impact residential communities. So this is the time to, again, it's like said it before, but the giant beacon is lit. It's time to pay attention to Mauna Loa, particularly if you live on that south side of Mauna Loa. The areas like Ocean View, Millie, those are really the areas that we would be concerned about at this point in time.
Yeah, so that's the two things, as I mentioned when I first jumped on here. One is preparedness, and for anyone who's in those areas that has less time to respond in the southwest rift downslope communities. This is the first domino really that could lead to something worst case scenario happening, of lava coming down above residential areas. And so if you have a flow chart of action to take, now this is the first domino to fall, where you might start packing things up, and just in case, if you needed to leave and evacuation was called in a few days, you would not be doing it from scratch if you have not done that already, right? Gathering all those documents, all those kind of things are, while there's still time, and hopefully there's plenty of time, it doesn't actually progress to eruption, but that's the first domino that kind of sets it off. And then as far as the science of it, we're seeing what's typically the lava coming up in the summit area, within summit caldera. When the USGS says the summit region of Mauna Loa, they actually include the outside of the caldera and include the upper slopes of the upper parts of the rift zones. And so we can have all the flows as seen in these photographs taken from Kona, of lava on the very upper slopes of the mountain. And they can flow some distance downhill, but it's usually a long way until they get to any inhabited areas for those upper slopes. So if the lava is flowing off to the north into the saddle, then the two facilities really that are at most risk are the Mauna Loa Weather Observatory and the Pohakaloa training area, right? And I'm sure Mauna Loa Weather Observatory is probably initiating their own evacuation plans for themselves, because you just never know. Once there's lava coming up there, things, a fissure could migrate and put a flow in our direction more quickly than not. And so I'm sure that those guys want to get out of there and put that plan into place. Pohakaloa is a little bit further down slope, so they have more time and the flow going that direction. But likewise, you'd like to see them making some plans too at this point in time. So that's really the areas that would be most under threat, would be those areas down there in the saddle, upper flanks of Mauna Loa. The weather observatory is up at 11,000 feet. So that's why it's at that most risk from summit eruptions. On that map that Dane's got pulled up there, you can really see the old flows in black, and a lot of those don't even reach that tree line where it's green down there on that west side towards Kona. So that's the zone where the summit flows can spill over if the fissures don't migrate into the rift. So some of those flows up in the upper slopes are part of summit eruptions, even lava flowing down slope like that. And Dane, I got to take a call here. So.
All right. I will take over the stream. All right, one of the questions we had here, I'm going to try and do real quick, I got up, is how far are these areas away from, or is this eruption away from residential areas right now? So right now the eruption is confined to the caldera, or to the summit region, I shall say. It looks like it's slightly out of the caldera, but summit region. And so we'll say right about here, and I'm being generous, and we'll say 17 to 18 miles downslope from where it is would be inhabited areas. Maybe a little less, 16. But yeah, that's basically what we're talking about in that direction. The observatory, that weather observatory that monitors CO2 emissions, it is right here, and it's 3 miles away from the north side of the caldera there. And if we're looking for helo, that's all these roads over here. So really, we'd be talking about riverbeds. Show me a riverbed. So we'll say here, we'll just say how far that is. The thing about it is, if it went towards Hilo, it would probably find a riverbed of some kind, but that's 30 miles away from the summit, 33 miles away, right? Now here's the one that's the trick. This red right here, this is the rift zone of Mauna Loa. This is where it's known to erupt. Half of the eruptions start and end at the caldera. The other half transition into the rift zones in some way, shape, or form. Now, when you transition in the rift zone, this is the flows of the 1950 in here. Eruption, let me see if I can pull some of those flows up. Where's my lava layers? A lot of it's 750 years. Right, so we're going to clear that. And this should be 1926. Yeah, 26. And this one would be 1919. This one is 1950. That's an older one. And that's also 1950. So yeah, those are some of the flows, and you can see that those come down though from the rift zone. Here we go. So they have to get out of that summit region, right? And that's what we mean when we talk about transitioning into the rift. And that's what we're really looking for right now is it going to transition into the rift? Right now there isn't an indication that it is, but it very well can, right? It has historically, and then the question is which rift does it go into? If it does go into a rift, then the eruptions, it progresses. If it's going to continue to progress, right, it can open up in the rift and then erupt in the upper part and then transition further down and then transition further down and transition further down. It doesn't really like to transition down and then back up type of thing. It more likes to, if it's going to transition, it works its way down. Let's see if I can find anything new going on this. Trying to check social media as well, see what else is coming out. Right now there's not a whole lot through the official channels. It is quite late. Oh, looks like this is a new photo I haven't seen yet. Let's pull that up. Pick that down. And that is the view currently, it looks like, from Kona, somewhere in Kona, looking up over the slopes up on Mauna Loa in that giant red glow. Letting everybody know that it's time to pay attention. Mauna Loa is erupting again. Last eruption was 1984, but before that point, if you go back to 1950, go back, say, 100 years, it's commonly erupting every 3 to 5 years. Mauna Loa eruptions, very common. We've had about 40 years without that eruption, 38, and that's the anomaly, right? Mauna Loa erupting, not uncommon. It getting into residential areas, that's less common, right? That's not its MO really. It's more like, again, a roulette wheel where green is bad, black and red, they really don't matter. You can spin it multiple times and land in black and red just because the green is so rare. But once it goes in green, it's in residential communities, and that green definitely gets hit. Let's see if we got anything new on the webcam. Looks like a 13-minute old photo. Those fountains look to be dying down from a little while ago.
Right. That's because that fissure is still spreading, right?
Right.
And that's really the question is if we can track from any points of view and any angles how far that fissure is going to spread. That's going to be the crucial thing to try to track there. So we'll got the initial progression here from the summit webcams, but pretty soon single webcams aren't going to be enough to catch the whole thing here if it's got a fissure outside of the rift somewhere, outside of the caldera somewhere.
Right. I guess that kind of is the question right now: is there another fissure outside of this one that we're seeing?
Yeah, and it's quite common for fissures to have multiple segments, and maybe that's what I was going to say earlier. Is having a secondary segment outside of that caldera would not be unusual, and putting out flows in the upper slopes. So that's really the question: if it's doing that, and if so, then if those flows in the upper slopes are heading just to that northern side of the rift zone, or if they're going to that south side as well.
Got a photo here I just pulled up. Message you on Telegram. There's an interesting one in there. It does look like it is correct. It's hard to tell. All right. Let's close some of those up. All right. This is the caldera before the eruption, and then this would be recently. Same. You can see how far that fissure is stretching. So big old long fissure across the caldera floor, potentially one outside the caldera as well. We're still need to see more about that. Whoops. Kind of looking on social media as well, seeing if I can see anything. There's a lot of photos of glow, but everything's so far away from the summit of Mauna Loa. That's kind of all you're going to get at this time, that and the summit webcams.
All right, so maybe I'll try my summary again, because what I would like to do is just summarize and then jump off, because I can't really do a lot of productivity just sitting here. So yeah, the eruption began at the summit there, and if you look at that earthquake map Dan's got up, that's the likely extent of those upper summit area fissures. It looks like it's likely going across that summit caldera floor. And possibly it's fissured in that upper area outside of the caldera to the southwest of it, right? That's that connector to the southwest rift of Mauna Loa, but not considered part of the southwest rift quite yet. If it's up in that upper area, it's got to go down lower for it to consider entering the rift. It's a big mountain. So those upper fissures are putting lava into the caldera and covering a lot of the caldera floor. And it looks like putting flows down the upper slopes of that southwest part of the summit region as well. It's not quite clear if they're flowing just down to the west. It looks like the pictures taken from the Kona side are showing those flows on that west side. You can see where those two red dots are on that southwest side, Dane, on that black flow.
On this one. Oh, which
on
one?
That earthquake map.
The earthquake map. Earthquake map. Sorry.
So on that earthquake map, where you had the, I guess it was maybe on Google Earth. I'm not sure where you had,
Google Earth.
Satellite overlay there. Right there, yeah. So if you look at those to the left of your arrow there, the two red dots, like there's that big black flow that goes down the slopes.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll move again.
It's
like
up.
One of those upper flows from the summit area.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be flowing down. That's too far down, like way up the summit, where the earthquakes are. Yeah, like up there. So just to the left of that text label, there's two red dots, and like those flows that go to the left. are the kind of flow I'm expecting that we're seeing from the pictures here.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Those big black ones right there. So outline any of those. That's the kind of thing you would expect. Going down to those upper slopes in there, you can see that's really far from the highway. It's really far from any of the upper developments of people. Apart from just to the north of there, right, is where that Pakalua training area and Maunaloa Weather Observatory are located.
Yeah, so here and here, there, Volcano, Maunaloa Observatory.
Yeah, so if the lava is coming out of that fissure in that upper southwest rift fissure, then this is all part of that summit eruption pattern. And it's really got to move out of there to one of the lower segments for it to be considered going into the fissure. And so at this point, Danny, if you can bring up those Truesdale inundation zones later on there, then you can actually see the extent of that summit boundary, I believe.
Right in here.
Yeah. So yes, if you look up there, then if it's flowing down, let's say that orange inundation zone to that on the left of the summit, then you can see that where it could.
Where it's confined to, yeah.
Where it's confined, right there, yeah. For example.
Right. So these are basically watersheds, but for lava. So they create there's physical barriers here in the topographical landscape that create these like retainers, almost. It's compartmentalized as you can make a giant volcano like Mauna Loa, which is this big. It's huge.
Yeah. So what it can show you is those near summit areas where they can flow down towards, right? And considering that it can fill a lot of the caldera and then
flow out,
split its way and flow out there. Yeah. So and it's we haven't seen any indication of it coming down the southeast, but on this side of the mountain, it's been a little cloudier the last I checked, and so it's not as easy to tell.
Right, and that cloudiness does make for a lot of glow as well. Really amplifies the glow out there.
Yeah, so that's the current status. We essentially are in the phase where the fissures are opening still, and they're migrating, and so that's what we will try to track and get information from SGS. And that's really the crux of it, right? Are they going to extend out of that summit area? We'll call it below 12,000 feet or so, or they're going to stay up there in that upper reach. And that's a process that could take a couple of days to play out, or possibly longer. Often it happens within a couple of days, 3-4 days, but not always. Sometimes it does last longer. But you'd expect that we might have more development on this in a matter of days. But for now, it's a matter of tracking where those fissures actually are and where the flows are going from there. So if there's any other questions we want to look at, Dane, then I'll probably jump off of here and see what we can get together.
Yeah. I'm just scrolling through. So I got a question for you. Generally speaking, what would be a concerning earthquake sequence that might indicate that it was going into the rift zones? Like, what would be concerning to see start happening?
Things are going to happen pretty quick, really. So, I mean, we're really looking for where the fissures coming out of the ground, honestly, right? There can be little micro earthquakes ahead of the fissure propagating. And so if you do see clusters of migrating earthquakes, that could be that. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, because lava will come out of the ground within a few hours of that happening, you're just as easily looking for where the fissure is spreading right now, and how far it's spreading, and when will it stop spreading is what we need to look at first. Right. We may not have earthquake signals that are characteristic with the resolution that we have here, is what I'll say.
Right.
And there are certain feeds, but it looks like everything's kind of overwhelmed right now, so it's hard to really nail that down exactly.
I got up on the screen a little image from GOES West, one of the satellites that provides imagery of the islands commonly, posted by the National Weather Service, and it shows the air mass red, green, blue product, basically representation of the the cloud cover and all that visually. But anyways, you can see that summit eruption, and it looks like the plume is getting blown towards Hilo more than Kona in that one currently.
It's in that upper level, right? It's not down low.
Exactly.
You could pull up purple air if you wanted to, and confirm that the sensors in the northeast part of the island there are not picking up that.
Yeah, let me pull that up.
Yeah, so if you did see a series of earthquakes, if you did see seismic swarms, further down on a rift zone, then that would be of great concern. But that's not a guaranteed thing to happen. It could migrate with not an obvious earthquake pattern too. I'd say at this point. So
Never I got purple air up.
there.
Is there something we're after on this in particular in the data layer on purple air?
No, I mean, you just look at what's showing on the screen there. Like, there's only one station in Hilo. I guess there's a whole gap between Hamakua.
And purple air is user generated, so it's just how many people have the device and deployed it and share their data with the purple air website. And right now there's only one guy in Hilo, but that's it's really low, so it's probably up high. I mean, that's the 30. I don't remember the foot, but the traditional wind patterns change from blowing from the east to west to west to east more at 30,000 feet, something like that.
That inversion layer varies and where it occurs. The southern Mauna Loa is up not quite 14,000, right? But it's putting stuff up, and it's not coming back down. Is essentially what we're seeing so far.
All right. So yeah, we are just going over the latest, and I think Philip's gonna bow out. I think I might stick around for a little while longer and just go over some of the latest. Keep an eye on it for a little while. But I thank you, Phil, for jumping in and providing a little bit of you're sharing your knowledge with everybody. And I'm sure we'll keep monitoring it. It's weird to get it at midnight at Sunday, but hey, that's what we do with the volcanoes, is get caught off in weird times. So get some sleep, and we'll see what we got tomorrow in the morning.
All right, we may jump back on if something else is going on or to summarize at some point. But yeah, unless there's something more to say, we'll wait until there is to say it.
Right.
So thanks, guys, and we ho.
All right. Hello, Phil. All right. Let me get rid of that. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank Phil for joining us. I do a little recap too. At about 11:30 tonight, we had a summit eruption occur up at the caldera of Mauna Loa. This eruption is currently spreading still. We can see it progress here on the thermal camera. Try and pull up the latest as well. But it's still inside the summit caldera, which is very far away from the inhabited areas. We're more concerned about if it's going to transition into the rift zone than a voluminous eruption at the summit impacting people. It's really about that movement into the rift zone. As of right now, USGS says that there's no indication, no evidence that it's moving into the rift zone, which is good. The sequence normally does start at the summit, or it does start at the summit. That is just in the historical record. It starts at the summit. Half the time it starts at the summit and ends at the summit, and the other half the time it goes into one of the rift zones or does something a little funky. But they always start at the rift here, or so always start at the summit here before going into the rifts. So we are just again waiting to see if there's going to be anything more along those lines. Let's try and pull up anything new that's going on. Right now we're just checking. I'll try and get up chat as well. What's up with the EQ on the southeast flank of Kilauea? It's one of the questions. It's interesting. 4-4. Probably adjustment of some kind, but yeah, 3 magnitude 3.3 at 4 kilometers down. Happened at 1:13 a.m., which is 45 minutes ago for us. A little over, but thereabouts. But really, we're waiting to see if these earthquakes are going to start transitioning, if we're going to see the magma start moving into the rifts, or if we're just going to stay parked at the summit. The transition will happen, if it's going to happen, relatively quickly in terms of we're talking hours to days to within a week in general, with one exception on that. But that's the expectation, if it's going to go into the rift, that it will do so within the next week. But it's, coin flip if it does that right now. So we are looking to see if there's anything more that's been shared, any new photos, stuff along those lines. Pull that up. Just sharing some images that are online being shared publicly right now. And that's like what a lot of people are going to see is this. You're not going to see much other than a lot of fog, a lot of these gas emissions, and a lot of red glow perched up on the hill. And there's no real way to get up there. There's no way to get up there right now. The trails have been closed for 2 months in kind of preparation for an eruption like this to take place. And there's really, the best footage is going to come in the morning when the overflights are going to be going up, and those overflights are going to be able to really share some good footage. The best footage we got currently is coming from 2 cameras. One is the thermal camera. This is up at the summit of the Maunaloa caldera, just looking into the caldera itself. We can see this line of fissures extending across, and that has been inching forward over the last couple hours now. Almost on 3 hours. And this was the other camera, the ML camera. This is showing that eruption start to progress and move down further and further across that summit. And these are, again, this is a normal eruption sequence right now, or normal looking eruption for Mauna Loa up at the summit there, a long line with the curtain of fire taking place. So really, we're just waiting to see if that rift zone comes into play or not. All right, I'm checking to see chat. Why is everyone saying Kona be safe? Because Kona, let's pull that up. Once I got it up. All right, so this is the Truesdale inundation zones, all these different colored areas, and this basically represents all these areas combined, what is in the reach of Mauna Loa, really. Even areas that haven't had a lava flow impact communities in a long time, they still get in it. Except you can see here that Kona, right here, is not inside the footprint of Mauna Loa. It is shielded by another volcano, Hualalai, right here. And Hualalai, if it went, would be very bad news for Kona. But Mauna Loa, other than bog and things like that, Kona itself is not in the path. Yeah, it's not contained. It's way up on the summit, though, way up slope right now. So we're trying to see. Yep, Kaika posted start preparing, and that's what everybody should be doing. It can transition rather rapidly. We're talking within hours it could transition and start working its way into these rifts, and into this rift particularly, and putting flows down rather quickly. If it were to go into the northern rift, that takes much longer for communities to be impacted than the south side. So this is the time to get ready. That the beacon has been lit. It's time to prepare if you are in South Kona to make rather quick decisions if they come your way. Oh, I mean, Kona's safe from Mauna Loa. I mean, Hualalai, it's bad news bears if that were to go. I described, Mauna Loa multiple times in this uh, live stream as being comparable to a roulette wheel where black and red are all these areas that don't impact communities, where green is the residential areas. So it's rare to be able to get into the green, even though you can spin the wheel multiple times. Hualalai is more like a coin flip. It's a coin that flips much, much less often. The last eruption on Hualalai was 1801. But when it flips, you better win that flip, because if it goes south, that's just Kona. And those slopes are also very steep. So where should people go? Right now, you're really just watching, right? It'll be dependent. Where people go is going to depend on where this thing, if it does transition into the rift, where does it transition into the rift, and not only where does it transition into, where does lava exit the rift zone? This line right here, right? Where does lava exit it? Because that's going to determine what lava shed it's in, and then that lava shed determines what areas are downslope could be impacted. Now, not all flows are going to reach all the way downslope. Most of them stop before then, right? They descend towards it, but hang up on the hill. But there's definitely, you can see these patches in here. Inundation zones, bam. Well, they do get the ocean, right? You can see these flows just in the satellite imagery, right? This was 1950. We have 1919, 1926, 1909. These flows did get down there, right? And would impact if they were to happen. Right now, we're still at the summit caldera. Yeah, the north. It is flowing down the northeast slopes, but there's so much slope there. It's really we're looking for the transition into the rift is the concerning thing. It's starting a flow that comes down. That happens quite commonly in a Mauna Loa eruption. You can see here with all these flows visually. Let me pull up flows from the last 750 years. There we go. Right, you can see these flows last 750. They come down the slope. They just don't get down the slope. These are the ones, right? These are the ones that are bad, and these all come from the rift zone. Is lava faster or slower, and any rocks to worry about? Generally, Mauna Loa is pretty hot and fast moving, but right now it's still within that caldera or the summit region, and that summit region descends probably at least 2,000 feet down from the caldera itself, right? So it's a pretty broad region. So we're still in that what we considered a summit eruption. Show the speed map. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, there it is. Alright, that'll work. Alright, so here we can see the times on some of the past eruptions that come into the southwest rift zone, and how they get there, 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 29 hours, 4 days, 24 hours, 18 hours. So if it does transition into the rift, then it's really time to start paying attention, and those warnings can come quick, right? And those evacuations can happen rapidly. If it is to transition, and that's kind of what we're watching and waiting for. Is it going to transition? Let's see if NASA Firms has anything for us. Oh yeah, it has a lot of heat. So it is coming down the slopes there. Probably. It's hard to tell. The Mauna Loa thing is the Firms is so broad. But yeah, this is a thermal from the NASA. It's a fire monitoring. It's quite useful, but we can see this is Now the Maunaloa Eruption, which is ongoing, and here is the Kilauea Eruption at the summit in Halemaumau. And it looks like the plume is impacting, but it's hard to know exactly what this is indicating. But yeah, we do have a signature coming off of it, and it does look like that flow may be on that south side of the caldera, moving towards the west potentially. That's what it does look like in the photos. Let's see if we can. Just going on, pulling up some footage as it comes out. Does look like it is coming down that western side from the summit. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, we're trying to figure out exactly where this eruption is leaking out of the caldera. It does look like it is. Don't have any good aerial footage yet. Trying to see if there's anything new. Sorry, guys. It's hard to tell exactly what's happening with the firms. It's a very cursory look. It kind of tips you off about things, but the lines that it draws aren't hard and fast. So I'm gonna go ahead and get off of that. Let's go over here, see if there's any more earthquakes. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, it's hopefully we will get a little more. Let's check in with our friends at USGS and see if they have anything to say. Anything new? Doesn't look like it. We can take a look at this again. We can see that plume from Mauna Loa start up. So it is definitely going. Leave that for now. See if we can see anything on the other cams. Go and give this a refresh just in case. Some of these are frozen. I do not know about Lou's ETA. They're really going to try and look to pineapples. They're going to try and look for a location that is able to see at least some good glow. It's probably not the easiest to get much more than that. Just some glow from a distance as of right now. hopefully by morning we're going to have some aerial footage, and that will be able to definitively say what's going on right now. Right now it's 2:20 a.m. in Hawaii, and we are about almost 3 hours in now to this eruption that's taking place at the summit of Mauna Loa. It appears to be the flow is coming out of the caldera, moving to the west. Do not know any details about the size and scope of that right now. Going to try and find a little bit more as well on the side. We are in the Mauna Loa summit eruption. Not a whole lot. There's not a lot of new footage to share right now that I am seeing. If anybody has something, try and let me know in chat. Something new. What's the average length of a Mauna Loa eruption? So they're usually relatively short-lived, but there's been eruptions that last years as well. Um, the typical case is they're shorter-lived eruptions, very vigorous, voluminous. Half of them start and end at the caldera, but the other half get into the rift zones in some way, shape, or form. So it's usually a hard and fast Mauna Loa, but there's eruptions that go 230 days, 250. That's not without precedent. It's spread a lot, but the caldera is a long way away from other areas. Let's pull that up again. So this is the caldera here. This is the rift zones in the red. You have the northeast rift zone that goes towards Hilo. These flows are generally much slower progressing towards residential areas. And then you have the southwest rift zone, which is the area of concern currently. The caldera itself, though, is let's just show it how far it is away from areas that are inhabited. From Highway 11, caldera to Highway 11, 19 miles. So it's got a ways to go on that one. The thing is the distances become much, much shorter in this southwest rift zone. And you have ocean view here where it's inside the rift zone, right? Part of it, this chunk, is inside the rift. So lava can come up directly under this area. We're still waiting to see if it's going to transition and work its way down, right? But as of right now, it doesn't. There's no evidence that it is doing that. The earthquakes don't seem to be showing that, but it still could, right? And that can take days before you could. 1926 eruption in Mauna Loa. We're talking about a 12-hour eruption at the summit, and then we have 4 days where there's relatively not that much action happening, and then it's in the rift zone and it's action. It's fast moving. It's crossing the highway. It's taking out houses in Milili'i. It's doing those types of things. I have not heard of any flight restrictions currently. I would be expecting them. Some kind of temporary flight restriction like we saw in 2018. No idea what the uh, specifics on that are going to entail, but I would imagine there would be some kinds of restrictions in place going forward. And also, there is the red aviation code issued by USGS earlier already when they upgraded Mauna Loa from yellow to red in the aviation code. Yes, the slopes are quite steep in this area, and let me pull up a little map here. We'll show how steep those areas are. Sorry, a little. It's 2:30 in the morning, so it's taking me a little longer to find things. All right, so let's look at the slope of this bad boy here. show the elevation profile. All right. We can see here, you can see this, how high it is and that slope through here. And you can see it undulates, right? It's not a constant all the way down. But you have some very steep slopes in that area. And we've just, in a couple miles, dropped a few thousand feet or a couple thousand feet. Now, if we come over here, I was saying this area is much more gradual. We'll show the elevation profile here. It might be further down even. Yeah, look at the slope there. It's not even comparable. That steep slopes. But you get some steepness, but then you get into the flatter pans. But these steep slopes and this Kona side, so if your profile, we'll look at this one again, or this line here. You can see that percent slope in there. And we are just continuing down the slope, and it's still steep, and it just remains steep. We'll jump ahead a little bit. We can still see that steepness in there. Just looking through chat, seeing what I see here. Yeah, people from Hilo can go back to sleep. You now know Mauna Loa is erupting, but that's, the question is still on for the Southwest, and I'm in Puna right now, and I'm up watching it. If I was on the Southwest Rift, I'd definitely be up watching this thing right now. But it's all about pacing yourself. One of the things that happened in 2018 that we ran into really quickly, when you get into an eruption that's very intense and it's going for a prolonged period of time, is burnout. Guys going for 4 days without sleep, they just hit a wall. And they can't continue. Even in terms of sharing information, guys hit a wall. So that's something always got to be conscious of, is know your own limitations. But it is 2:30 in the morning. We are going strong here, seeing the latest on this summit eruption. Seeing where it is right now is the main question that I have is, what's the extent of this flow outside of the caldera? We've seen in the record, they don't typically get that far. Let me get rid of all this stuff. We can see these summit flows that come out from the caldera on that south side typically don't get that far. But we do wonder where this thing is exactly. We don't have any good aerial imagery of it right now that I have seen. I'm still looking for some. Just looking to see if I can see anything new. Really, right now, it looks like the newest things are just going to be the stuff off of the webcam. So let me pull those back up. The newest webcam footage. You see that long fissure there? Yeah, it is interesting to see if Civil Defense or any of those guys are going to issue an alert about that flow that may be coming down from the summit across that barrier where it'd be in the inundation zone, and warnings would potentially be issued at that point. But it's, again, 2:30 in the morning, so we don't know how that's going to go. We're looking here at the latest photo from the summit caldera, and that ongoing fissure that is quite long. I don't know how long it is right now, but if that thing ends up being over a mile long, it would not surprise me one bit. I'm just looking to see if there's anything that's... So it looks like Hawaii County, from what I am hearing, is going to be trying to get a helicopter in the air relatively soon, just trying to figure out where the lava is moving, which would be very prudent right now. It's all we are working off of historical records and partial information right now, and a bunch of glowing sky pictures. Earthquakes. Let's pull those up, see if there's anything new. We need to keep checking in on those. Nothing really suspicious right now. A couple earthquakes. We did have a sequence of earthquakes leading up to it, a swarm up at the summit. These were relatively shallow earthquakes, so they were like -1 to -2 kilometers. The minus means that they're above sea level. Normally you see a depth of an earthquake and it's 20 kilometers. That's 20 kilometers below the surface. So a minus is up in the air actually, or above sea level. So Maunaloa gets up to about 4K, and it's those earthquakes. You can, let me see if I can find one of them. Pull it up. -1.2. Looks like a lot of them were in that area. -3, -3.7. So we're getting very shallow at that point in time. Let me pull up chat again. Not sure on how high the fountains are. The scale is so hard to work with. I'd assume they're probably a good 100 feet more, maybe a couple 100 feet. Those fountains are really impressive if you were up close, but we just don't have any close-up footage to share or look at right now. Yep, we do have earthquakes continuing on there. You can see these earthquakes. These red dots are earthquakes in the past hour. So we have a 2.8 at -0.4 kilometers, so just above sea level, -3.1. So yeah, decently high up there, but those flows look like they're taken from somewhere. I don't know exactly, but in this area, somewhere over here, and they're looking up and seeing it coming down, probably off of in here, this direction. No, that's not gonna work. I don't have a magic marker on this computer apparently to highlight things, but yeah, it'd be likely we'd be looking at something in this area coming down to the west in these upper slopes, and they still got a ways to go before they get into that inhabited area. But that, from the crude pictures that we've seen, let me see if I can pull one of those up again. That one's bad. That one's not great. Alright, there's one. And see, we see lava, so it's not inside, entirely confined to the caldera at this point. But it still looks like it's relatively high up on the slopes. We cannot get any sense of scale on this thing. But yeah, the USGS was saying that, let's see if they have anything new out. I thought they had more than that. I must have lost it. Tweets and replies, maybe. All right, so here we have USGS, and we are trying to confirm that the summit caldera is overflowing. So far, events are confined to the caldera, and that's in response to sharing of this video, which was taken from Kona.
Look,
and we can see that lava coming out right there on that on the slope. So outside of the caldera, it looks like in that image, and in the other images that we've been seeing. We haven't seen that aerial image that apparently the Hawaii County Civil Defense is hopefully preparing somebody to go up and be able to take a look at that, be able to share that imagery, hopefully in the not too distant future. I don't know how long I have in me. It is almost 2:40 a.m. But we're still going, and we'll check chat. $5 super chat from Dana. Thank you. Thanks for working in the early hours to keep people up to date and prepared. Yep, that's what we do. I'm not going to. Oh wow, it looks like. All right, I got some users I need to hide on the channel. It looks like the bots are back. Yeah, we're all kind of waiting for that area, that overhead footage. That's So the national park, it will not be closed at Kilauea. The trails at Maunaloa are really the only thing up around the caldera, that and like the red cabin, but those are still trail associated things for hikers that want to venture to the top of Mauna Loa. I haven't made that journey because it's a long walk and it's at altitude and it's just not a fun day. And you're going to be looking at a lot of domed rock, and it's really just the caldera that would be the impressive view. But it's a ways up there. It's remote. And that's part of the reason why we don't have any good footage on it. The west side of the island currently is not evacuating, but there should be on some kind of standby because that order could come at relatively quickly. This eruption came relatively quickly in terms of like the sequence leading up to lava coming out of the ground. We had an earthquake sequence beginning around 10 or something tonight that really started to get suspicious, getting shallow, getting bigger. But it didn't give 10 hours of sequence going into it or anything like that. It was relatively quick. Let's see if we can pull up any SO2 measurements or particulate matter. Right now, the best we got is the purple air sensors, and really it's not really showing much on this. Everything's kind of in the green, so looking decent. Really looks like from what we've seen, it looks like it got into the plume is into the inversion layer and is traveling back towards Hilo, but is at such high altitude. But it's super preliminary. We really don't know. Just seen a couple models so far. Trying to find out more as we go. And everybody is going to be aware Mauna Loa is erupting come morning. I guarantee that much. It's no secret at this point if you look out the window. The sky is red. Doesn't look like I'm seeing much new. Mauna Loa has a couple cameras on it, but it's so big that the other cameras just aren't showing anything. They're black. There's a few cameras. Let's see if we can pull up. Some of the different cams that we have access to. So M2, M3, those have been showing a little bit from time to time. So yeah, you can even see it. This was just before the eruption started, it looks like. and then we're going at that point. You can see some glow there, but yeah, that's kind of what you're dealing with is with the other cameras is just glow and a lot of fog. So we have the two cameras up at the summit, looking into the caldera. So this is earlier before the eruption took place. This is what we're looking at, and then we have the eruption going across that floor. It's likely that entire caldera floor is going to be filled. Question is now the overflows to the south and the extent of those, and what they're moving to the west. Right now, there isn't really any flows towards much. I mean, it's the flow is still very upslope. If it is, moving towards the inhabited areas, it's still relatively far upslope compared to if it was to try and do a similar type eruption and moving down the slopes, and it was in the rift zone. So that's why the rift zone is such a concern. Is just the proximity, right? If people were built up on the summit of Mauna Loa, then yeah, it would be very concerning right now. But there's a distance in there. Any historical data with similar signatures? Yeah, this is typical Mauna Loa right now. Summit eruption first. Go back to 1840, the historical record of past 33 eruptions, 34 eruptions now. We're starting at the summit first. And then the question is does it transition into the rift zones or not? Half the time it does, half the time it doesn't. When it does, it becomes particularly concerning if it goes into the southwest rift zone as opposed to the northeast. The northeast is much more broad slopes, it's slower moving, you have more time. Southwest is steep, fast, and it comes out right under some areas that are inhabited. Now that's where the cause for concern is right now, and if it's going to transition into the rift zone. Right now we have a summit eruption, right? This is a eruption of Mauna Loa confined to the summit caldera, or not confined, actually. It's outside the caldera. It's moving down the slope to the southwest, but it still would be considered a summit eruption. We're still waiting to see if there's that southwest rift zone activation. Yep, Mad Hacker, you're correct. It's similar to pick an eruption type of thing. You're going to find a lot of similarities with this one and whatever one you end up on, be it like 1919, 1926, 1950, 1975, or it goes like that. So two pineapples are on their way up to Waldron's Ledge right now. Hopefully we'll be able to get some footage from them that we'll be able to share with you. Again, the coolest thing about where they are, if they are at Waldron's Ledge and are able to get some footage out, is they would from there potentially be able to see Kilauea erupting in the foreground, immediately in the foreground, with Mauna Loa erupting in the background, and to be able to see both of them in one shot. That's kind of what we're hoping to be able to bring to you. Just because there's no way to get a close-up on Mauna Loa, and there's no real overflights that I know right now. Hawaii County is supposed to be going up soon, so we're waiting to see if that's going to happen. They did say that. It appears to. I mean, that's what the photos seem to show. We just don't have that clear, definitive photo where we're like, oh, this is where it is right now. We've seen photos taken from Kona and from South Kona in that area, and we see glow, and it's more than just glow. You can see what looks to be lava coming outside of the caldera, moving to the south. So it's, outside the caldera, but it's still got a long ways to go. It's not the summit eruption and lava escaping that's a huge concern. Immediately to me, it's the rift zones, right? That's what the record shows that is the concerning part. Right now, we're still waiting to see if it's going to transition into the rift zone and see what that would entail. Really, it's where let's pull that map up again. Truesdale. These are the Truesdale inundation zones. And the way you use this map is you wait to see where lava pops up You don't even wait to see where lava pops up, but that's, if it pops up in the rift zone, that's concerning enough. But really, it's when it escapes the rift zone and lava starts flowing down into one of these lava sheds. That's when you're going to start seeing like evacuation orders potentially, and it's time dependent. So these evacuation orders in Ocean View are going to come a lot faster than you would see in Hilo or Waikea area. So yeah, we are now watching the south side of Mauna Loa, not because we know that lava's going there. It's more that that's the concern always with Mauna Loa, just because of how the time window. Are drones illegal in the national park? Drones are illegal in the national park, right? That is correct. They are illegal in all national parks. It is not a good idea to try and put a drone up inside the national park. It They don't treat it kindly. Let's just say that. All right, let's see if we got anything new coming on down the pipe. Looks like a bunch of people are out and about on the streets of Kona taking photos of the glow. Looks like the glow can be seen from Nale. The glow can be seen from a lot of areas. Glow is, again, compared to the beacon of Gondor, because you can see it from everywhere. The beacon's lit. It's time to, especially when you're in that south side of the island and the footprint of Mauna Loa, which we're looking at here. In these areas, it's really, now's the time to be watching. If it's going to transition into the rift zones, more than likely going to happen within the next week, and we're going to be watching that. That would be if it's going to go into that. That's what the sequence would look like if it's going to go into those areas. We've now gotten into the first part of the sequence with summit eruption, and now does it transition, and then how far does it transition, right? And we can get fissure eruptions a long way down that rift. Let's see, it looks like we might have something new from USGS. Okay, we have a new statement from USGS. The eruption continues at the summit of Mauna Loa. All vents remain restricted to the summit area. However, lava flows in the summit region are visible from Kona. There is currently no indication of any migration of the eruption into a rift zone. Okay, so that's kind of what we're saying here, that we can see it from Kona. You can see that lava coming down, but it's confined to that upper section of that slope of Mauna Loa, and it's a long ways down that slope still. Let's pull it up here. We're talking 17 miles, right? The good thing is to see that there is no indication that it's migrating into the rift zone. That can change, though, right? That can change rather rapidly. And we're going to be watching for roughly the next week closely to see if that's going to be happening. And I'm sure USGS, Civil Defense, all that time, all those meetings that were happening in South Kona, the Kona Waina, Ocean View, and Pahala, they each had a meeting with Civil Defense and USGS, where they presented them with a lot of the data that we're going to be using now, and a lot of the preparation was really started, or not completely started, but really was jump started then. So continuing just to look through to see if we got anything new, really. Looks like somebody has time lapsed the eruption a little bit, and mine's only manual right now. I haven't set it up to automatically do that. I should. I just haven't. Mine just records. Is it on their thing already? That's not what I'm looking for. Where is it? That. You can see this was earlier, the 27th. Then 11 p.m. is the time. Bam. And then we're going. We only get a few frames there. Anyways, we can get time lapses going when we got more frames. Right now, these cameras up at the summit of Mauna Loa that we're looking at, they really update only 10 minutes, every 10 minutes, publicly facing, right? So on the best case, we get a image every 10 minutes on these things. USGS, their feed, their private feed, updates significantly more frequently than the public feed, but we just don't have access to that. Hopefully USGS is able to get out some kind of time lapse of with a high frame rate as opposed to a 1 frame per 10 minute frame rate. But right now we do not have that. So let's pull back something up. Check out the latest photo. All right, it looks like there has been an update on the closures at the national park. They're now closing the Mauna Loa Road that at Bird Park roundabout. So you can't go up the slopes basically at all from the south side on that the national park access road up there. That thing is so skinny anyways, there's no way. But check the VOG again. Not a whole lot showing there. Seems like it's up above the inversion layer most of the VOG. Check earthquakes again. Got a few 2s, it looks like. All right, well, thank everybody for joining us. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that fun jazz. Has Civil Defense launched any helicopters? There is talk of one shortly if it hasn't gone up already. Hopefully we'll know more. It does look like the way USGS was talking in that last statement that they made it seem like they had some kind of aerial photo of it that they were able to definitively say what that flow was doing, because everything else that we were seeing from Kona, from the ground, there was so little detail there in terms of knowing what you're looking at to be able to say how far down the slope it has gone or anything along those lines. So maybe they have gotten something and that was just the preliminary word that we were able to get. And there'll be more footage and stuff like that coming out soon, hopefully, Not sure on that until we have it. We know that more flights will be going up in the morning. Probably about 4 hours from now, we would have some daytime footage. I'm sure some guys are already planning to get up there if they're not some restrictions in place, which there very well might be. Okay, they are fueling. We're just checking out to see what the latest is. Looks like we got a few more photos can show off. This is what a lot of the photos look like. Glow from various angles, looking upslope with a little red poking up at the summit. That's one of the better ones that I've seen, really, in terms of actually being able to get an idea how far up the slope it is. Still pretty high up there. One second. That orange there would be the lava of some kind. Looks probably some fissure. I'm putting it up so you could see it, but it does look like there's a lava flow in some of the other ones as well that's visible. Now that's not, again, the giant concern is, the summit leaking lava down the slopes from this area that we're looking at in here down into these areas. We can see all these different flows that have happened over the last, several centuries, we'll say. And they don't really make it all that far. If you want to get into things that get ugly, it's down here. If they transition into the southwest rift zone, we got very steep slopes down here. We have ocean view, which is exposed to the rift zone. So if it was to transition down here and you were to get in a very bad placement in the rift zone, it could potentially erupt under the ocean view itself and put lava flow down steep slopes into the community really quickly. Good thing is right now there's no indication of that happening, but that can change relatively quickly and with little forewarning, other than the giant beacon is lit at the summit of Mauna Loa right now saying, hey guys, pay attention to me. I want attention. And so it's time to just give Mauna Loa its attention and see what it does. Trying to jump before that it transition isn't going to work. We got to wait to see where it actually goes, because Mauna Loa is so big. We have all these different inundation zones that really tells us, where depending on where the lava goes, where it enters into is the areas that need to be concerned. But it compartmentalizes Mauna Loa. Otherwise, it's such a big volcano. You can see all that coloration there. That's all that's basically the footprint of Mauna Loa. It's a big volcano. Check the chat, see if we got anything else coming in there. Yep, a lot of lava starting to spill out to the southwest of the summit. I don't know about that. So apparently there's traffic jams in Captain Cook. It's the traffic jams are going to be a concern as well if it does transition into the rift zone there. The traffic, Hawaiian area, it's not good on good days, and if we jam it up, then it could get concerning. But again, it's a very big volcano. These lava flows are usually, you get multiple lava flows that come down, but they usually don't make it into those inhabited areas. So we're talking about an eruption that probably we don't know for sure, but it's the most likely case is somewhere in this blue and this blue and this orange, in that part of the rift zone up here somewhere. You can see those don't typically make it all that far. Yeah, you can see lava flowing. It looks like from somewhere in South Kona, not a Hawaiian area, maybe. Not exactly sure where they're able to get that vantage point from, but some people are able to see the lava on the southwest side of the caldera. So it's outside the caldera, still in the summit region, which is a pretty broad area. Yep, lava is coming out of the caldera to the southwest. I have not seen any official evacuations yet. Let me check again, see if anything's changed. So fluid situations, things can change rapidly in this. I don't suspect there would be evacuation order right now. There's two different levels of the evacuation too. There's mandatory and non-mandatory. Non-mandatory, it's what it sounds like. It's highly suggested, but it's not. They're kicking you out of the area. You might not be able to get back into the area, but they're not in that kind of a evacuation. Not actively kicking out. Looks like we have something from Civil Defense here. Let me pull this up. Released not that long ago, 10 minutes ago, it looks like. All right. Eruption at approximately 11:30. Summit caldera. Confined to the summit. At this time, there is no indication of lava exiting the summit nor lava migrating to the southwest rift zone. As a precaution, shelters have been opened at the Old Kona Airport in Kailua Kona and the Ka'u Gymnasium in Pahala. So there's 2 shelters open for anybody that would like to evacuate. There is no evacuation order right now, but it's as a precaution. And so they're talking about the summit region, right? Summit region and the caldera are different things. The summit region is more broad than the caldera itself. So lava has gotten out of the caldera, but we'd still call that summit region. Oh, whoops. I should close that. All right. Try and look at the... Yeah, I'm sorry for the bots and everything. It's amazing that they're still here, but... Yeah, the sky is probably pretty incredible in Kona. Very, very red. See if we can... There's anything updated on this one. 3 a.m. This photo was taken about 6 minutes ago. Still see that active fissure and now extending, it looks like, off screen. So it's extending a ways down. We have lava flows outside the caldera flowing down the slopes of Mauna Loa, but Mauna Loa is a very big volcano. Mauna Loa access road from the national park side from Bird Park is closed from the roundabout in Bird Park. I do not know about the Mauna Loa Observatory Road. Assume that it's going to be closed soon if it's not already. And that was the latest, it looks like, from Civil Defense. And again, we got a bunch of glow photos. Glow is very prominent, and haven't seen anybody posting from Hilo. If we do have anybody that is in Hilo, I wonder if you can see the glow from outside your house right now. I imagine you could, but I have not seen a photo of that yet. I have seen Nalehu in a bunch of different areas. Let me see if I can pull this up. Looks like we got a time lapse that Philip was able to get together for us. Let's see if we can pull that up. It looks like everything up until just the last image. See that fissure expand pretty rapidly across the floor of the caldera there. Hard to know exactly how long that thing is, but it's pretty long. It would not surprise me if it came out to be that the fissure was over a mile long. Don't know how long it is, but that would just not surprise me. People claim to see it in HPP with no pictures. I could believe it. I mean, I've seen plenty of glow from volcanoes, and you try and take a photo with your camera. Unless you got a good camera, there's no shot. Unless you can do something with the exposure to be able to catch it, it just doesn't show. But you can see it with the eye for sure. I don't know if that's the case, but it would not surprise me. Yeah, they don't show the scale. They don't show uh, the location all that well. The photos from the ground that we've seen. What city is this? The photos look like they're being taken from Kona, and South Kona, and probably further south than that, maybe Kona Hawaiian area. But yeah, I haven't seen anything from the north side. Let me see if I can find more about Captain Cook. I've seen a few things. I'm just trying to look to see if I can find anything on that. Let me check to see if I've got any alerts that I missed. So as of right now, the last message from Civil Defense does not mention anything from Captain Cook. Again, they have open shelters at the old Kona Airport and in Pahala, but those are as a precaution that they're saying right now. That's what I'm seeing. Now, an evacuation order can come relatively quickly, right? If this, take a look at the earthquake activity. Earthquakes were to indicate that magma was moving into the rift zones rapidly, which USGS currently says they don't have an indication of, but if it were to happen, that evacuation can come with little warning. So really the warning is right now. The warning is that there's a summit eruption and all this, because the next step that we don't know, if it does transition into the rift zone, that's the one that is for keeps, really. That one can get very sketchy very quickly, and things like traffic jams and all that can really come into play and have consequence, really. Oh, it looks like there is a photo from Hilo. Let's see if I can pull that up. It's just glow, really, but it looks like you can see the glow from Hilo as well. So yeah, I'm sure I can't see it. I don't even have a vantage point at it from where I am, but we will believe that. We will come back over here and see if we have a new photo. No, we do not. So yeah, right now we are kind of just waiting and seeing if we're going to transition into the rift zones that flow from the summit that is outside, or the flow that is outside of the caldera, still in the summit region. That summit region is kind of broad compared to the caldera itself. That's, we're keeping an eye on that. Really, though, it's that rift zone transition. That's the one to be looking out for. The that's just based upon the record, the historical record, as well as the slopes that we know exist in that area. Just very steep slopes. You can get down to the ocean in as little as 3 hours. Done that twice in modern history. Other airflows can take several hours or more, but that's the worst case that you have to prepare for and be planning around. I am still checking to see if there's anything new that I'm seeing. Sorry, everyone. News hit CNN. Oh, I cannot wait to see what the mainland media are going to say about this thing. Normally they do a terrible job with any Hawaii eruption, but in Mauna Loa, the world's largest volcano, they're going to go to town. They are going to go to town. All right. Appreciate everybody that joined us. Yeah, Phil will be busy for the foreseeable future, and yeah, 700 degrees Celsius. I mean, that's hot, but that's not that hot for Mauna Loa. I wonder if is there something to do with the distance from the camera to the lava. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, it's hot. I mean, it's molten rock. It's definitely hot up there, but it gets hotter. They definitely get hotter than that. At least from what we're seeing. You've seen on Twitter, apparently you have ash and debris everywhere. I'd be interested to see where. I'm trying to see stuff like that. I'm not seeing it. I'm running out of screen real estate being live, trying to scout. Social media is not the easiest when you're working with just a tiny little side window in your cell phone, which I'm not good on the cell phone, really. Just scrolling through to see if there's anything new that we're not seeing yet. Yeah, the sky is so red over on Kona side. I am not seeing a whole lot new. I did see CNN's article, and I'm not going to share it because I don't think it is worth discussing at this point, their angle that they're taking, but it is what it is. They are meeting expectations, basically, which is not high for them. Yep, it has been 38 years since Mauna Loa has erupted. The last eruption was 1984. That one was on the northeast. We started at the summit. And then we moved into the northeast rift. And that one started to approach Hilo. But that approach is relatively flat, which means it's relatively slow. Instead of this fast streamline flow going down slope, it gets fat and broad and takes over a real big area, and that slows it way, way down. And also can reset further up slope. When it does that, it has all kinds of things that it brings into play. When it's steep, when it's that southwest rift, that's when if you get that lava, that you put down a decent amount of lava, that it's just going straight to the ocean. There's nothing stopping it, and it's steep slopes all the way down. So the lava flow right now, not affecting any town directly, ash and stuff like that. But even the ash that we're talking about, there's going to be ash, but it's not like, Mount St. Helens ash or the 1924 eruption of Kilauea, the explosions of that ash. It's more that, you're going to get a wide distribution of some ash, but not like, coating everything where it's like snow. Like that's not. But ashes, you're going to get Pele's hair, potentially these thin filaments of almost like basically fiberglass. If you get embedded in your hand. They feel a lot like fiberglass. They're not pleasant. If you've experienced them, you will know. Yeah, I'm trying to check, see if we got anything coming. Where is the lava predict? Oh, so sorry, I lost my train of thought. Anyways, let's pull this back up the map, because this really depends. It depends where the lava eruption happens, right? So let's get rid of the lava flows that have happened historically, and let's just, blank template here. This is the rift zone that runs down from the southwest. This is the one that we're going to be concerned about primarily right now. These areas off the sides are lava sheds. They work similarly to watersheds. There's topographical features in there that are going to act as barriers to prevent lava from really, going from one partition to another. It's going to stay in one partition. Now, you can get multiple flows running down and taking up multiple of these partitions, these compartmentalized areas, and activating, multiple at once. That happens. That's common. So really, it depends where it comes out, right? And if it gets out of the rift zone, and like how fast it's going, that kind of stuff. And that's when the evacuations will come. Is if it moves into the rift, and then we're going to be seeing where in the rift, because this is a big rift, and you can't just evacuate like everybody from South Kona to Pahala, right? You got to be surgical with the thing, and you got to figure out where it's going. And the thing about doing that is you don't have a lot of time for ocean view, so that's why the message is like to be ready on the south side, the Mili'i, the Konawaina, the ocean view, even over to Pahala less to a degree, but those are the guys that really need to be, prepped, because this thing can move quick, and it could come downslope rapidly, and you get those evacuation orders, and then, like bad things happen. Because you're stressed, and the one we saw in 2018 was you're stressed, you're freaking out. That means that your animals are freaking out too, and there's a much higher chance that your animals, your pets, run away at the worst possible time. And that's what we saw in 2018, is animals would get spooked and take off right as the evacuation guys were trying to get them, get in and out, all that kind of stuff. It was, really sad. Roads are blocked. They're making people go away around to Ka'u. From where? Captain Cook? Is that what you mean, Jay? Cops evacuating people in the Mili'i. I wonder. It's so sad. I want to call people, but I don't know if it's 3 a.m, if they're gonna be on this thing or not. Ooh, there are some photos for sure. And it is moving. That is the thing. Yep. Let me see if they haven't. Let me send a text message, see if this person is awake. Because they would be able to tell me. Oh, I also got somebody else who could be able to tell me. Oh, frick. Write this down. Sorry, everybody, trying to get a little bit more information. Pull this number. Can you tell me anything about evacuations in the area? All right, let me sent out some feelers. We will see if they are able to get back to me. Sorry about that. Trying to get something semi-official about what may or may not be happening on those. It looks like we got a time lapse. Try and get this up. All right, that is a time lapse of the eruption at the summit so far. I wish I could loop it. I'll try one call. So I think this guy's up. Yo, hey, I'm on stream. You mind if I put you on live? Oh, I was just gonna put your voice through. All right. This is Kaika Marzo, everybody. So Kaika, what's going on? What do you got to share? What do you got? Anything you know?
We're up. We're just gathering information on what's happening in Kona and what they're seeing out there. And what they're seeing out there is it's still in the summit region, and the summit region is 12,500 feet and above. So definitely outside of the caldera, but it's moving downhill.
Right.
Got some pictures of 10-minute pictures apart, and you can definitely see the lava flow advancing downhill. So we're hearing a lot of reports of people are evacuating from various communities on the South Kona area, from Captain Cook all the way down to it.
There's no like evacuation. Is there an evacuation order or anything? Do you know anything about the cops?
There's no evacuation order. There's no closing down of any highways, but definitely there's a little panic in the area in the South Kona area. We got some pictures of people trying to put gas at the gas stations, and it's like 20, 30 people in line waiting to put gas.
Right.
So definitely there people are panicking, and I'll go out there and say it. Our community needs information from our leaders right now, ASAP, to keep everyone calm, collective, and get a game plan ready for our communities on the South Kona area.
Right.
And that's why you can understand. We went through this in 2018, and it's like everything is in closed doors, and there's not enough information for people to digest. And with no information, people will start to create their own information in their head and start to make the wrong choices. So just want to make sure everyone is prepared. You don't have to evacuate. Just be ready to evacuate if the time arises and it is necessary for you to evacuate. Make your proper phone calls. Call your family. That if you have family in Hilo, Kohala, Waimea, Kailua, Puna, all those areas is pretty much safe to go to. So if you have those family members out there, make the call. Say, hey, is it possible I can bring my animals now? We've seen during the 2018 eruption when it was too late. We've seen animals perish in the eruption.
Yep.
We don't want to make that mistake again.
Yeah, that's a good point about trying to set up the evacuation of animals. If you're not going to evacuate yourself right now, you're maybe holding off on that. It might be a good idea to still get the animals out of there prior, because you might have to move fast, and at that point, the animals become complicated.
And okay, and this is what I've been telling people. It's pretty simple. If you live in Kona, you know the area. If you go south from Captain Cook all the way down to Ocean View, the slopes there are super steep from a short distance. If it hits those slopes, it's gonna move quick. It's like water, The quicker slope, quicker decline, the water moves faster. It's the same thing with lava, and that's something that a lot of our leaders got to take into accountability, because if it does hit the slope, and it will. And our people down in these communities ready to evacuate in a timely fashion.
Right. And the thing is even if it doesn't get into those communities this time, it's still, eventually going to. So it's, if it doesn't this time, it's still great practice for the time that it does, if it doesn't this time.
Yeah. And, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Right.
You don't want to be evacuating at the last minute, and, you don't want to be that person to be evacuating at the last minute. And once you start to evacuate, and there's like thousands of people that are thinking the same thing like you are, evacuating at the last minute, and then start a traffic jam. There's only one road in and out of those areas, which is highway. I forget what the highway is, but Highway 11. I think.
11.
But there's only Highway 11. There's only one highway.
Yep.
So being prepared, being smart about it, is the number one thing. And for me, I'd rather be wrong than not say anything at all.
Right.
I'd rather say, hey, get your stuff ready. This is where it's possibly going to go. As you can see on the footage, on the pictures, there is visibly a lava flow that is outside of the caldera and moving, moving southwest at a substantial amount of speed, because we've been seeing, 10-minute pictures of it moving. So I rather say, hey, this is the possible areas that could potential be lava threat areas. Hey, be vigilant. Get your stuff ready to go. Be prepared, and if not, evacuate already.
Right.
And don't be the last person. And I'd rather be wrong than not say anything at all.
Right. And the traffic is a real concern, because it's such a bottleneck in there. Kona area, Millie, Captain Cook. We're already hearing about traffic issues in Captain Cook, as well as with the gas stations trying to get gas. That's really the biggest thing to me about maybe making a proactive self evacuation. Making the call yourself. Maybe not right now, but making that determination
Yeah.
on your own that hey, I'm gonna start moving stuff out. So if I do gotta go, I only gotta pack a couple light things and then I'm out. Um, or even be out of there beforehand because that traffic, like that road, I don't see how it moves fluidly during an evacuation or
Right.
anything like that. We saw in what was it a year and a half ago that fire in Waikoloa Village where the evacuation was handled very poorly, where the traffic was backed up and the flames were basically getting to be on top of them, and they just people are just trapped in their cars almost. They got lucky in that one. Then the fire decided
Right.
to back off before jumping the road and jumping into Waikoloa, so it really bullet dodged. But we've seen those evacuations get out of hand, and there's not a lot of room for that on the south side of Mauna Loa. So that's really, if we're talking preparedness, it's like, guys, you might want to go before the thing comes, and it's not like the lava's going to catch you; it's the road is going to be jammed.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big threat too. I mean, you know, as you can, trying to evacuate right now is just posing a big concern on the roadways. And I just got some reports that there's traffic right now as we speak. So being prepared is one thing, and another thing too. It's hard to leave your home.
Yeah,
It's hard to leave your home because looters. I mean, we went through that in the 2018 eruption with the looters, people coming and ripping off your house, ripping off some of your things, and you don't want to leave your home, but it's still the best bet is to just be prepared. You don't have to leave until the evacuation order is out, but just be prepared and get all your essential needs and all your important paperwork all together. So when it's time to go, you have it all there and ready to go. But
exactly.
also, like your animals, like I said before, get that all squared away, get that all scheduled on where you can take your animals. And in that region, there is tons. There's that whole hillside is all ranches. Kealia Ranch, Pace Ranch, McKinley's Ranch. You got all these ranches out there and all these farm animals too. That's something to also think about too. These cowboys gonna be trying to evacuate their cattle and taking it to other ranches. So that's also a big thing that might pose a traffic jam too. So take all of that into accountability and make those decisions and make a plan for yourself on what you should do right now as we speak.
Yeah, that's great advice there, Kaika. Yeah, this is Kaika Marzo, everybody. In case you don't know him, Kaika Marzo was the absolute man in 2018, leading the response of the civilian side, and really just pulling weight for the entire community. It was, something awe-inspiring to be a part of. And I thank you now, Kaika, for joining us at 3:30 a.m. on a Sunday to talk with everybody and try and reassure people and give them a little bit. We're still watching. It's late and all that, but we'll sit here and continue to monitor and definitely I agree with all your advice about that preparation, and this is the time to be ready,
Right.
and maybe even make those first moves.
Right.
You don't want to regret it later.
Just preparing yourself. Yeah, you don't want to be the last. You don't want to make decisions last minute, and making decisions last minute that can. I mean, you can make some mistakes on that too. So
Yeah, I mean that was
stay
me. And
vigilant,
yep,
stay informed,
exactly.
and this is the best place to be informed is with Dane and Philip because they go play by play and they answer your questions and they're on top of it. They're on top of it more more than any government agency that we have in the island. So everyone stay informed with Hawaii Tracker and Dane DuPont and Philip Ong.
Well, thanks, Kaika. Appreciate it. I think Philip might jump back on with me here in a minute and talk some story. See what's going on with him. Yep, and appreciate your time. I'm sure we'll be on streaming again in the near future. So maybe we'll get together and do something. See what it's like in the morning, because that's really what we're gonna dictate what's happening is what that volcano does.
Yep, we'll be watching. So, and then I'll forward you some information if information comes in. But have a beautiful night, everyone. Aloha.
All right, aloha, Kaika. All right, that was Kaika Marzo. Appreciate him jumping on. He always is able to speak in times like this. Hey there, Phil, you there?
Hey, how's it going?
Let me see if I can get you back on. There you are. All right, so we are now over 3 hours into the summit eruption of Maunaloa. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I think we're probably 11:30.
Oh, 4 hours.
We're 4 hours in now, and we're starting to get a little bit more information as far as a pattern of images and all that. So you get the time lapse that I sent there. Can you put that thing on a loop, maybe?
I cannot. As far as can I? Is there an loop?
Right click.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is this just gonna loop? All right, I need 5 minutes. I'm gonna dip out, and you can take over.
Okay. Yeah, is it looping?
Yeah, it's looping.
Okay. Got a little lag on my stream here. So, all right. So what was we got the loop there of the thermal camera up at the summit, Mauna Loa. This is Mauna Loa thermal camera, MT cam, courtesy of the USGS HVO. This is only getting a partial view of what's going on, but it's showing that opening sequence of the eruption there, which I thought was pretty interesting. So let's kind of look off to the side here to get the. Let's put this so I can. All right. So what you can kind of see there is that flash right in the center of the image is where that fissure begins most brightly, but it actually extends kind of over to the right a bit also, and there's a bunch of fume in there that you can't really see, and the fume is kind of blowing up and towards the camera overhead, and that's confirmed by the satellite views that we have, that most of that gas cloud is blowing to the north and east, right? Which is over the camera. This camera is on the north rim of Mokuaweoveo and pointing to the south. So when you look at that last set of series of images on the cycle, you can see it looks like a little dark spot in the middle over there, and that's it looks to me like that's the old 1940 cone on a caldera floor, which is a kind of a I don't know, it's a spot that cracked open in 1940. I think the 75 fissure went through that similar area, and so did 84. So it's an area that's frequently activated, we'll put it that way. And so that shows that the fissure continues off in that direction into the distance, and you can't really see how far, right? So the reports of the lava that's coming out of that caldera area, it's still within a summit area, still above 12,500 feet. Presumably, is happening in a far distance in the back right of that image there. So that's kind of the larger context. But looking a little more detail, what you can see from this opening sequence of lava spilling into Mokuaweoveo caldera is you see that initial flood of lava coming out and spreading towards the camera, which is kind of to the east, to the left of the frame there, pretty fast. But then the second half of that loop, it seems like it stops advancing, and in fact you see that zone of heat retreat back towards the fissure. So this upper fissure within the caldera itself seems like it's surged forward to open up the eruption, but the main fissure is migrated to the right of this image down towards that upper southwest rift, still within a caldera area to still within a summit area to reemphasize that. The summit area is above 12,500 feet, even that upper part of that southwest rift and northeast rift, if it were to go in that direction as well. So it seems like the pulse started off here at the top, and it may have simultaneously broken open in that upper southwest rift summit area, but it seems to have focused up in the summit region in that kind of off camera here, right? So this first pulse came out within a caldera, and it seems to be slowing down as we speak right now. And of course, this can change hour to hour. It could reactivate or re-energize, so to speak. But what you're seeing is that initial flood into the caldera, and then as it slows down, you presume that that's when that southeast, that area off to the right, that summit region above 12,500 and to the southwest is where the focus of the flow is. And that is being confirmed by some of the reports that we're getting from community members in Kona. Lava is flowing down a mountain outside of the caldera, but all in that upper elevation area, 12,500 feet and above, more or less. That's the area, right? So that brings up something that I wanted to follow up on what Ikaika said. We can look at I don't have control of the screen and maps right now, but when we have the inundation zones from Truesdale, right? And we can we can look at the location of that eruption flow in that upper southwest rift of Kilauea, then you can see which of those buckets, inundation zones, it might actually be put at risk if this flow were to continue for a long time and get all the way down to those communities. So on the map that Dane has up there, that upper pie piece that's red that comes off the west of the summit, that's the Kealakekua, Captain Cook region up there, and the one just to the south, that's orange, that's the Honaunau one, right? So those two areas, Honaunau and Kealakekua, if that flow were to put out more lava than we've seen other summit eruptions put out in the past, could flow down into those communities. So those are the areas that, if you're going to be extra prudent and start making your preparations, pack, as Ikaika said, be prepared to evacuate, but no evacuation call yet. But these are the hours, the days, potentially, that you would have to pack things up if you were called to evacuate. And those are the areas most at risk now. We can call them Kealakekua, Honaunau, on that west side, on the Kona side. If you scroll that to the right and look at the Kau side isn't as steep. The flows don't travel usually to the populated areas there. But if they were to go in that area, then it's currently in that Kapapala area, which is that yellowish, and then a blue one is the Wood Valley zone right in there, right? So it would have to come down a long way. You can see where Dane's got his pointer, the edge of those old flows that are dark, right? The recent flows that have come down, how far they typically come down that slope. So it comes down into there. If it were to keep going, like we said, a lot more than it has, and all those other flows you can see on a map, then it would run down into Wood Valley on that side, or Kapapala Ranch, if it were to go on that northern to the blue, to that yellow piece there. But we'd be more concerned with it running down further on a Kona side towards those Honaunau and Kealakekua areas. That seems to be a bigger trouble spot. However, it's worth pointing out, like if you look at the top of that orange pie piece on that map, and all the way down to that road is a distance of about 16 miles, something like that.
What, the Highway 11?
Yeah, Highway 11 from that top boundary of that orange.
Yeah, you're right. 16.
It's about 16 miles or so,
yeah,
right?
16.5.
If you look at some of the, look at that longest flow you can see on there and measure it out, you're looking at, I'm getting about 8 miles maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can get an 8 mile long flow within that inundation zone, and it still is only halfway to reaching that highway, right? So that gives you an idea of how the flows have traveled in the past. It might run down that slope with some speed. And then one of two things can happen, right? The source that's feeding it lava has to stay steady. And if that source reduces, then the flow is going to fizzle out without advancing as much, right? And then the second thing that can happen is once it comes off those upper, steeper slopes and into the slightly flatter stuff and can spread out a little bit, it could also stall even with a fairly steady eruption rate, and that's one piece of it. And the other part is that the more different branches of flows you get, then each individual branch doesn't quite go as far also. So the more that it spreads out, it kind of reduces its forward advance in one particular place. If there's one giant gully that I could put all the flow into and channel that way, then that would be more worrisome. But when it spreads out, then you have a better chance of it not reaching populated areas. So thus far, it's all precautionary, right? That's why there's no evacuation call yet. There's no, that flow is going to come down a long way for it to be convincing that it's going to get down there, or it's going to show some flow speed that's significant as well, right? And one other thing to point out is we've looked at this, and I don't have the graphs here, but the eruption rates of Kilauea eruptions and Maunaloa eruptions of 2018, almost always they begin much faster at the beginning, right? You have a spike in the output rate starting off, and then it drops off after some time. That amount of time varies, but it's quite frequent that the very beginning of the eruption is when you see the highest effusion rates. So it's from there. What you see at the very beginning, as far as the amount of lava that's put out of the ground, does not necessarily sustain long term through the eruption. So that's one thing that's pending for us to witness and determine is, can we get a handle on whether that rate is decreased? Normally, we've talked about how many Maunaloa eruptions start and end at the summit, and they might do that within 24 hours or a few days even. And that's because that most of that pressure is relieved in the early parts of the eruption with that high eruption rate. That high eruption rate can put out those big flows that can advance. You might say, oh boy, it could go 3 miles maybe already, like in this first few hours, but then it might slow down more and more and more as time goes on. And so if you're saying, okay, it's going 3 miles every 2 hours, and then we got to evacuate all of Honaunau, it's not exactly like that. You have to track that flow front as it goes, and so on. And that's what the USGS is likely primarily concerned about. So those are the two areas that, if it flows from where it is right now going downhill, if it were to go with huge volumes, larger than we've seen historically, and usually longer, then it could potentially impact those areas. Those are the areas we'd advise to prepare extra, right? At present, right? If lava moves down that southwest rift, then other areas would be the ones that would be called on to prepare. And for that reason, anyone south of Kalakakoa and Captain Cook could also begin preparations, especially if, as Ikaika says, they have ranch land and upper slopes with livestock that take more time and effort to relocate. That said, the furthest south reach of the Southwest Rift, Ocean View, I would put it in the same category as we're talking about Honaunau and Kalakakoa right now. No indication the lava is going to go down and reach that point right now. But given the timeline that's potentially there, if that eruption rate were to be high, or the wrong sequence of events were to occur for those communities, you're looking at days of preparation before an evacuation is called. So I would add Ocean View to that Kalakakoa and Honaunau areas as the ones to prepare sooner, right? Because currently, if things were unchanged, which we've seen how that goes, things hardly ever stay the same, especially in these early dynamic parts of the eruption. But if given what we're seeing right now, it would be prudent for those community areas to be taking preparations, right? Not to evacuate, not to jam up the phone lines, not to jam up the roads, but to start preparing your own stuff in case an evacuation is called in a matter of days, right? Not within a matter of hours, because it can come a long way down there. So that's basically it, Dana. I just wanted to put that out there and follow up on Ikaika about the preparedness aspect. What we could see for the eruption sequence, how it really seemed like it surged up within a caldera to start, and now it seems to be focused more on that outside of the caldera, but still in the upper summit region, southwest of the caldera. And that's what people are seeing from Kona and photographing. And just to reiterate what the USGS said, like that lava visible from those areas is visible in that summit region still. And just once again, summit to them is above 12,500 feet. That's that area that historically is the demarcation line where if it crosses out of there, then you consider it to be in the summit.
All right. Yeah. Definitely concerning. I mean, the whole thing in general. We're keeping an eye on it. Let me turn back on my capture. Pulled up the latest image that we have available. Should be getting an update on it soon, but we can see that eruption still within the summit area. Was going through some of the reporting that's being done. The mainland is up at this hour, even though it's 4 a.m. here. It's morning news hour there. So the mainland news stations have been going through things, and there's something I want you to address already. AP, CNN, a few other guys are really going in on the ash fall and the ash advisory. Talking about, there's a warning on it, and that's what they're, Hawaii's Maunaloa starts to erupt, sending ash nearby. Do you want to comment on that a little bit?
I suppose the official announcement from the USGS is that the alert level is up to warning and the aviation code is at red, right? So that's where that's coming from, is that red advisory from the USGS, is that warning that's usually put out when they have fears of ash. I have not seen any firsthand reports of ash reaching anywhere where people are. Likely there's a lot of that tephra and finer material at the eruption site, but that's up so far from everyone that really wouldn't expect anyone to notice any of that, really, right? The other thing that's kind of worth noting is that Hawaii is not necessarily along a major flight route, right? Normally those flights go closer to Alaska, or they loop around the Pacific that way. They don't necessarily come across Hawaii unless they're coming to stop over in Hawaii for the most part. So it could affect, if there were to be ash, then it could affect more the local air traffic than anything else internationally, right? That's kind of the second part as far as an international scope that these news organizations are addressing here. But finally, is one thing you mentioned before, is that this kind of volcano is not really a big ash producing volcano. It's not likely to put a huge volume of ash into the air to really affect things. It has had some explosions in the past documented, but it seems like those are very localized to the summit region and affected by the presence of local groundwater more so than anything else. And so that kind of limits the possibility of how much ash you can put up in those areas.
Right.
So personally, I can see the official announcement that there was ash, or official announcement from USGS, the red aviation, and them taking that to interpret that as ash, as something tangible that they might feel safe reporting on, but that is fairly insignificant in the grand scheme of things from my point of view here.
Right. I envision it being much closer to Pahala in 2018 and the ash that they got, that light dusting of ash, than anything significant, really. And even that might be highballing the amount of ash,
Yeah. Well, that ash was generated from a caldera collapse, right? And every time you have a collapse, you do have a bunch of dust rising up, and there's
little bit.
As far as we can tell, there's not really any big collapse happening there. It's like just a regular fissure eruption, right? So it produces, like you said, the Pele's hairs and Pele's tears locally, and that kind of tephra, but it's not really making the smaller, lighter stuff as much that's going to be held aloft, right? This is not like a Pinatubo style where it puffs into the air and that stuff circles the earth a bunch of times. It's likely it's, like shooting in the air and falling and, a few tens or hundreds of yards away, and that's the end of that.
Yep. I'm going to check chat real quick, see if we got any questions there that I can see. Yeah, the eruption happened around 11:30, looks like. How far from the Kona? We don't know exactly, but probably, it's 18 miles from the rift zone to the road, Highway 11. So we've got a ways to go. It's still considered summit area, so it's high up the slopes.
So we have a message that came in via Kakamarzo, which seems to originate with Mayor Mitch Roth. And he says that they've been putting out information through civil defense. They're consulting with HBO, and nothing has entered the rift zones. Lava is still in the area of the caldera. That's what they're still saying. And so, that kind of is that fine nuance that we're saying there. An area of the caldera could be outside the caldera, but still in that upper summit region. No evacuation is called for. Shelters are open at Ka'u Gym and Old A's for people who have voluntarily self-evacuated. They have asked for air views, but there's have to wait till first light for those first flights. And they've added USGS webcams to the civil defense webpage under volcano hazards. So that's what the county has been doing, giving us an update to share as well. And that all makes sense.
The update also just mentioning that they're not able to get the flight up that I was mentioning earlier that the county was going to try and get. Seems like they did try, but they're not going to be able to get somebody up until first light, which was somewhat the expectation when we went into it in terms of getting aerial photography. So we'll expect that in the morning.
It's not that long from now, honestly. What, a couple hours?
Yeah, right. Okay.
A couple of 3 hours till they're actually in the air, and then it might be a little while till we get the images back after that.
We got a question: is Hilo safe? Is Hilo side safe?
Yeah, Hilo side has not as much to worry about. If the lava were to go in that direction, there's still going to be a lot of time for us to talk about it and prepare for it and pack and all of that. So I think it's too soon for Hilo to really jump into any kind of action or panic, really, right? And like everyone else, make sure you have a good evacuation preparedness plan, like you know where your documents are, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't seem as urgent for you Hilo folks as it is for the Kona folks, just because of the response times given the flow rates and slopes in those areas.
Right. And on the flip side of things, we have a comment. During 1950, the mountain lava traveled 15 miles, 24 kilometers to the ocean in less than 3 hours. So yeah, that would be talking about one of those lobes that came down off the 1950 flow. And 1950, we really do consider like the worst case scenario in terms of Maunaloa eruption, in terms of just gauge things. What's the very bad end of this scenario that we have in modern history, and 1950 is where you're going to land in terms of if you're going to go back to 1840. So yeah, it does move quickly on those southwest slopes. There's some areas where it just gets very steep and lava can come down. So if people ask me what is the worst case scenario for me, it's a flow that's very similar to 1950, except maybe it pops up under ocean view instead of just upslope, and something in ocean view that comes up under ocean view would be very bad in terms of response times and things like that. But right now we don't have any indication, according to USGS, that lava is entering the rift zones, which is what we're looking at right now. That's the question: is lava entering the rift zones? We're going to be asking that question for the next several days before we really have much more indication on okay, is it if it hasn't entered, then be okay, maybe it's not going to enter, and maybe this is one of these summit only eruptions. Now the thing, summit only eruptions are the most likely case in modern history for an Maunaloa eruption. All eruptions start at the summit. This one started at the summit, and then if 50% of them will make it into the rift zones, 50% of them will end at the summit, right? And then there's a breakdown of the rift zones and the odds of that happening, and that's just based on the 34 eruptions that we've had on Mauna Loa in modern history. Question for you, Philip, if you're ready.
Sure, real quick. I'm back.
Okay. Why weren't there much larger earthquakes or more consistent earthquakes before the eruption, like all times in history except 1975? That's from our friend Regav.
It's not so much that it happens every single time in history. It's just that when the earthquakes happen, then the eruption is associated with that. But it doesn't mean that you haven't had eruptions without those earthquakes. They have occurred as well. It's just more that we look for the patterns. The patterns are very noisy, and in this case, it didn't give us that big flank earthquake, right? But as I said a while ago now, that could potentially help keep the mountain's eruption restricted into the summit area. So we'll have to wait and see. But ultimately, it doesn't necessarily matter, right? I mean, it did it this particular way, and the whole point of trying to look at the earthquake patterns was to try to anticipate and predict and get some more warning and anticipation. But at this point, we're kind of past that, really, and we can wonder about the academic side of it, but well, not as relevant, really, right? And the key point would be that there have been a pattern of eruptions that have not had those earthquakes, also. Right, that's the bottom line. So, Dane, I know you've been on here for a while.
Yeah.
We have word that Mayor Mitch Roth and USGS scientist in charge Ken Hahn are going to want to join us in the live. I think we should probably reset how we're set up here so we can get them in and broadcast fresh. So I would propose a short break.
All right.
If you want to wind things down, and we can
Yeah.
get it set up and come back on within, like, we'll call it half an hour or something, and something like that.
All right. So the plan
do you
is
think?
that we will end the stream here, and then we will be going live again in, say, a half hour, but we're keeping that time frame loose. I'm just hearing about this. We're going to keep that time frame loose, and then we're going to go live again with the mayor of Hawaii Island, Mitch Roth, and scientists in charge of USGS HVO, Ken Hahn. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
All right.
If all goes well.
Well, let's do that then. I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. We will be trying to go live, and that will be something very interesting. I hope everybody likes, subscribes, all that kind of stuff, because if you like, subscribe, get the notification bell, you'll get that notification when we're about to go live again. No exact time on that, but that will be something very interesting, and we'll have much more to come out than what we're able to do right now. All right, everybody. For Philip and myself, and thank everybody that joined as well. We had Akaika Marzo. We had Lou from Two Pineapples on YouTube. Thanks, everybody, and we'll be going live again shortly.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. After a short break. Aloha.